Good evening, everyone. Tonight is Monday, September 23rd at 7 p.m. I'd like to welcome everyone to Londonderry Town Council meeting. If everyone can please rise and remain standing. We'll do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could please remain standing. It's been a lot of pretty serious accidents in our community, and I'd like to remember those that have recently lost their lives in those accidents. I ask that you please drive mindfully, because not only are you jeopardizing yourself, you're putting our first responders in harm's way. And we'll take a moment of silence for those who have passed through accidents recently. Please be seated. All right, folks. Again, good evening. From my understanding, we have quite a few people in the back. For those who are at home, from the fire department. Chief Butler, are you present? Can you come up to the podium, please? So, first call, after a call to order, we have a tradition here at the Londonderry Council to recognize those who are new to our police and fire departments and other agencies. So, Chief, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
They say nobody turns out like the fire department. Jeez. Good evening, leadership. Thank you very much. We love this tradition. We like getting the new hires in front of you so that the community can see them and kind of put a face to the name. So we have a lot of new hires, and what we decided to do is draw the line from the new hires that I've hired on down. And so they're not all here, but we'd be here all night if I had them all behind me. So the first one, if you could just step forward, Sean Covell. So Sean Covell comes to us from Litchfield Fire.
Come on up, Sean.
Come on up, buddy. Come on up, buddy. The people need to see you. The people need to see you. So Sean comes to us from Litchfield, was a member of the Litchfield Fire Department. He's also the fire department's licensed electrician, which always comes in handy when one of the members are doing a renovation. So incredibly positive member, assigned to Battalion 1 under Chief Jeremy Magoo. And I had got a call from Chief Frank Freitzel when Sean was going through the hiring process. And he said nothing but great things about Sean, encouraged us to hire him, and he hasn't disappointed. So firefighter on probation, Sean Covell, Battalion 1.
Oh, don't go anywhere. Stay up there.
Stay right there.
Pray for a call.
Hey, saved by the bell, right? No. All right, so the next one is firefighter Garrett Gelano. Garrett, come on up, brother. Anytime we can, we try to hire the Londonderry natives. I'm a little biased. It is what it is. Garrett grew up in Londonderry. We went to school together. He lives on South Road with his family. All he ever wanted to do was be a Londonderry firefighter. But at the time, years ago when he first tried out, it didn't work out in his favor. And he took another job at a different department and circled back to Londonderry Fire as the organization he always wanted to be a part of. We gave him an opportunity, and we are so lucky to have him because he's doing awesome things. Like Sean, Garrett is also in the trades and owns his own welding company. And I'd be lying to say if I haven't employed Garrett at the farm to do some welding over at October Farm, but he does great work on that side of the house and on the fire side of the house. Again, Londonderry native and also assigned to Battalion 1. So Garrett Gelano.
Chief Butler.
Where's what?
Hey,
Dave,
Chief.
you like this one?
How many are you introducing tonight?
I only got a couple more.
You want to call them up and we'll hold our round of applause till the end, or do you want to?
No, let's give them their due. Let's give
I
them that
love
round of applause. Give them their due.
Let's do it.
All right, the next one. Dave Wally will be appreciating this one and happens to know his father from a different career over in Salem. But firefighter on probation, Jackson Sorensen, the tall guy over here in the back. So yes,
Aw.
yes, Jackson does look young. We know that the male's brain is still actively developing until the age of 25.
Would you say 45?
25, but I mean, mine's still
Most
going.
women would say 45.
Yeah, I know. How old are you, buddy?
19.
19 years old, and he is working for the town of Londonderry, Salem Blue Devil native. We're not going to hold it against him that he's a Blue Devil. Just kidding. I do actually hold it against him. Coach Slater, where you at? Concrete industry before he came to the fireside. So you know you can appreciate lugging concrete for him. He's got a work ethic. I liked him, so we hired him. So Jackson is assigned
Because
to
he met the
Battalion 3.
qualifications.
He does meet the qualifications, most importantly. And he's doing a great job. So firefighter Jackson Sorensen. All right. Probationary firefighter Kyle Berard. This one is unbelievable. So, Londonderry native, Londonderry High School. You see the trend. I was on my way to work, stopped at the gas station up at Triangle Mobile a couple of months ago. And I see this kid getting out of his car, and he's got a red New Hampshire Fire Academy recruit t-shirt. And I go, I don't know him from a hole in one. I go, my man, why don't you work for Londonderry Fire? He goes, Chief, it's all I want to do. He knows me. I have no idea who he is. So we say, come in, let's talk. He goes through the process, knocks it out of the park. So Kyle is now with us. That's just an awesome story. But he's assigned to Battalion 4 under Chief Anderson. So Kyle Berard. Now, two of my dispatchers, Matt Lemire. TCO Matt Lemire lives in Londonderry, not a native, but lives in Londonderry in your neighborhood, John. He is a baseball umpire, and an awesome observation I made was on September 11th at our ceremony. As I was preparing my remarks in my office, I saw Matt come by with his two children. And so I thought that was really cool. So I asked him afterwards in a conversation in my office. I said, my man, I saw you brought your kids. That's awesome. He goes, Chief, I feel like I'm a part of a family at Londonderry Fire. So, which is important for me and my staff and our people to hear, because if he feels like that, hopefully the rest of the members feel like that. And if they feel welcome and respected and loved, then they're just going to continue to do great things for the community. So TCO, Matt Lemire. Come on, Joanna. Our other TCO. So Joanna comes to us, again from Litchfield. So you can see I don't travel. If I can't get Londonderry, the neighboring towns will suffice. Joanna started as a part-timer in fire alarm. And then upon TCO Bruce Hallowell, Jr.'s retirement, Joanna slid over to full-time. And both Joanna and Matt on the radio are clear, they're concise, and what's pretty cool about Joanna is she possibly has aspirations to becoming a firefighter herself. So I think that's really cool. So Joanna Leone. So the next four that I'm going to introduce, they are part of Warrant Article 15. And for those that don't know, these are the members that the community at almost 70% voted to add staffing to the fire department. So these are these members now. So firefighter Paris Chartrand. Paris, come on up. I think one of my commitments in my report that the TM had us put out for the what is it called? The town report, was that how awesome would it be if I could stand before the taxpayers and say that we filled Warrant Article 15 with some Londonderry natives, a Londonderry native. So this is incredible. Interesting story about Paris. So the CPAT, which is what firefighters in the state of New Hampshire must pass to become eligible for full-time employment. the deputy chief, LeBlanc, was up at the fire academy. Was it at the fire academy, Paris? And he was proctoring, helping the state proctor the candidates going through. The Loudon fire chief approached my deputy chief and said, "You need to hire her. She won't come work for me, even though she was a live-in student for the Loudon," and if I'm wrong, please correct me, the Loudon Fire Department. Paris would not work for him because she wanted to work at home. And I thought that was another really, really cool story about the caliber of people that want to work for the fire department, where they will forego other offers to be here. So right now, Paris is awaiting battalion assignment, which will happen at the end or the middle of the end of this week, as the 4 new hires conclude their 2-week orientation period as Monday through Friday as new members of the organization. So Paris Chartrand. Adrian, come on up. Where do you think he's from? Londonderry. So, Londonderry, I know nothing about the candidates, but in the interview, here, just step, Adrian, just shuffle to your left a little bit. There you go. So the candidates all sit before the hiring panel, and if they make the cut, they get an interview. Here's a trade secret if anyone's listening. They get a cut with the fire chief, who does the chief's interview. And when they get to me, I don't care about certification. I don't care about experience. What I care is, what type of human being are we hiring? What type of human being is going to be employed by this community? And then ultimately, the type of human being that's going to serve the people of this community. So I always ask a couple of questions. One of them is, what's the worst day of your life? And what's the best day of your life? And not knowing anything about Adrian, I asked him, I said, "Hey, I would like to know what the best day of your life is." And he goes, "Oh, when the football team won the state championship." I go, "No way, where'd you go to school?" He goes, "Londonderry." I said, I'm going to see this right. And I called Michelle Hart-Miller, who's the athletic trainer at the high school team. And I did a character check in the present. And I said, "Michelle, I got Adrian Espinal, good kid." And she raved. She went off about the type of kid that he is, the struggles that he and his family have overcome. And where are you from originally, Adrian? Lawrence, Mass. Mother wants a better life for him and his brother. Does everything in her power that she can to move to this community. Adrian lives up on Mountain Home Estates on Fieldstone Drive. So we did something kind of special. We thought it would go a long way. We invited Adrian's mother to the fire department when he signed his conditional offer. And it meant the world to her. And we wanted to show her that she did a great job with those sacrifices and challenge to put the man in front of you today that's going to give back to the community that helped raise him. So, again, awaiting battalion assignment. This will come at the end of this week. Adrian Espinal. Ryan, come on up, brother. All right, where you from? No, where you from? Wyndham. I know. Again,
He's got to leave.
So Wyndham native.
When's he moving to London?
I was going to ask him. I don't want to put him on the spot too bad. Everybody's got a story, and it's fascinating to get to listen to the stories and why people want to become firefighters. And without sharing the intimate personal details of why this young man decided to be a firefighter, Ryan in college experienced an up-close and very traumatic death of a roommate. And I'm not going to share how it went down, but one of his observations was when the fire department came to help save his friend's life, he observed the firefighters caring for someone as if they were treating a cherished gift, because that's ultimately what life is. And it impacted him so much that he said he wanted to be a part of it and feel what it must be for another human being to treat somebody either in death or dying to the dignity that a firefighter or a first responder does. And I think that is very commendable, and that's your why. And so you have a long and successful career here doing just that, because I hate to tell you, it's going to happen more and more, but you'll get through it each time. Remember why you're doing it, okay, my friend? Good. Brian Murata. All right, Patrick McNamara. This one, oh. We're coming into MacPlac this weekend. Here we have a Pinkerton Astro now in our ranks. So
It's
again,
okay. It's all right.
again.
We'll forgive you.
We cut him a little slack because his stepfather is retired Battalion Chief Doug Cardwell. Doug Cardwell had done an incredible job over 30-plus years for the organization. But that's not why we hired him. He happened to have done an incredible job in the interview process and knocked that part of his journey out of the park. He is also waiting battalion assignment, and I am actually going to have him on the Londonderry side of the football team on Saturday so that we can now reprogram his brain into thinking Londonderry first, Londonderry always, Londonderry leads the way. So these four specifically, again, are waiting a battalion assignment. What we like to do, and actually the town manager, if I may, hosted a public safety meeting with the state representatives last week. Very, very good meeting. And he allowed me to talk to how we decide on where to put new hires. And with the fire department, we try to align new hires up with the battalion that we think will be a good fit for them and them a good fit for it. Because you can't just take a human and throw them somewhere. It might not work out. So we try to set it up for success from the get-go. So give us a couple more days, and you'll be getting your long-awaited, anticipated battalion assignment. Gentlemen, that's all I have. Thank you for your time. I know that was a long one. Any questions?
Now, I just want to say welcome to the team. Thank you for your service for our community. Very much appreciated all the work that you have done to get here and will do for our community and for those that are passing through. So thank you for your service, and Godspeed, and be safe. So you're going to make it through the gauntlet. So we'll start with down at Sean, and you're going to shake everyone's hand.
Good job, guys. Congratulations.
Go shake the rest of the council's hand.
Congratulations.
Congrats. Congratulations. I grew up.
Glad to have you. Thank you. Congrats. Glad to have you. Congratulations. Glad to have you.
Congratulations.
Did that work out?
Congratulations.
Hey,
Congratulations.
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 You already did.
Yeah. Good.
Couple areas
All right. We're going to have about
Mr. Chair, thank you, Council.
Hey, thank you, Chief. We're going to have about 2/3 of the room now clear, I'm sure.
They don't want to stay and see government in action?
I know, it's a lot of fun. Give them a quick minute if you guys want to leave. All right, so at this time, I'm going to open up with public comment. This is just as a reminder, we have 2 public hearings. If you'd like to talk about the public hearings during that time, you're more than welcome to. I just ask that when you come up, state your name and address for the record. Any public comment?
Hi.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Jason Latwell. I live at 72 West Road in Londonderry.
Hey, how are you?
I'm a little sick, so getting better. But I'm here to talk about the trucks, the traffic on West Road. I live like on a hill, and every like 4th truck that drives by, they use their Jake brake, and it just shakes my whole house all the way down the road. Speeding trucks, I called last week. They had a detail put on West Road. It was on the sharpest turn on West Road, so they didn't catch any speeding trucks. They should have parked on a straightaway. This morning, before 7 a.m., there was 3 18-wheeler trucks that drive by my house, and that's every day, Monday through Friday, coming from helical drilling and blasting. And the police chief has sent them a letter. They never responded. So the traffic, something needs to happen with the traffic on West Road. Motorcycle speeding, cars speeding. right now, there's another sign for the speed posted at the end of West Road. Doesn't stop anybody. So I don't know if the speed limit can be dropped to 25, if that would help. When they're coming the other way, going up the hill, they downshift right in front of my house because they're not going fast enough so they can accelerate more, and their engines rev up. It's just loud. It's a residential area. We got commercial traffic over on the Hudson side, and then we're stuck in the middle. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Chief, didn't we put the trailer out there for speed?
It's out there right now.
We have done numerous efforts down on West Road with Mr. Latoile. We have been in contact off and on for the last probably year and a half, 2 years. It's an ongoing challenge in that part of the town, as you're all well aware. There's a lot of business and residential. Continental is one of the largest businesses down there. They've been extremely understanding of the residents' complaints. They do their best when I'm being told of what you have seen, that they divert and encourage others to go. We've had this similar complaint at traffic safety meetings with Wiley Hill Road as well. For example, water trucks and so on. I can tell you folks, as the town council and leadership, this is the same issue that we deal with everywhere else in town. When the residents call, we react, we respond, we do the best that we can, given what we have to deal with for that time frame and the speeding issues. To answer your question, sir, we do have a speed trailer. We also have other means of monitoring devices at vehicles, such as the JMR machine that we use. So
Chief, can I ask you a question? Is that a trucking restricted road?
there's no through trucking going towards West Road.
It's 7 a.m. So if someone's coming before 7 a.m., they're in violation.
Right there before, yes. And we've been out there. We've had the midnight shift out there. And as you guys can imagine, as I've said many, many times, there is nothing more of a beacon than a police car. People see this thing a mile away, and you know we try the best we can with speeders and things like that. So we will follow up with Mr. Latoile. The deputy chief has probably already written it down, so we'll touch base. But West Road has been an off and on problem for some time.
So it's getting attention now. You guys are giving it attention.
It has been getting attention, sir, for quite some time.
Yeah, we've been going back forever.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chief.
Can I add one thing about Continental Paving? Continental Paving, they still go down West Road, the Wiley Hill direction, even though they're not supposed to. And when I get home from work sometimes, within 5 minutes, there'll be 3 18-wheelers that drive by. I think they're not supposed to go both ways. That was an arrangement they had made with the town when they delivered the soccer fields to the town. But I can't verify that myself. But when I call them and say that they're not supposed to be turning left out of their facility, their comments to me now is, well, they can be coming from Route 102, so they're not turning left out of their facility, but their truckers know that they're not supposed to be going down West Road that way. And it's like I'm beating my head against the wall because I know they're a big company, and I'm just a little house on West Road. Feel like a little house on the prairie.
Sir, do you call the police department and report them when they're violating?
Well, I was, but they changed the way their dispatch system is, so I can't necessarily get a live person. And I don't want to be the Karen of Londonderry calling the police department, because there was a time that I called you guys every day for 2 months.
That's okay.
And they were doing everything they could, but like I said, helical drilling and blasted. Did they ever respond to your letter? They never responded to the police chief's letter, and they're doing business in the town.
So,
So we're trying to, so sir, I'm trying to figure out how to help you.
Yeah, me too. I have been for a while.
If you logged them, if you just like made a list.
Oh, I got, well,
And you gave them to the police and everything. I'm not a policeman.
Well,
I don't
the
know how
bill-
they operate.
Yeah.
But if they had a log of when these things are happening, I'm sure the operations deputy chief over there would start to deploy his resources based on information that you're giving him. So I know it's not you. I know we're doing the best we can, and I know I'm asking you to do something that is inconvenient. But,
So
but I'm trying to help.
yeah, I understand that. So when I went through it with Ron Dunn a little bit back and forth too, and he appropriated me to the building department because the building department was in charge of that. So the head building inspector went over to Helical Drilling and Blasting and talked to them and said, hey, shouldn't you guys mix up your times? Because they have to be in Boston in the morning. And he said, shouldn't you leave the day before? And they told him, we'll leave when we want. So they don't care. They do not care.
Well, we have laws, and people have to follow laws. And if, and if they're violating the law,
Yeah.
that's what the police department does.
In the trucking law, it says to and from making a delivery to a residence, not a business, even though their business is there. So they are technically in violation of.
So my suggestion is we have PD, the town pays for that, a level of service that we have. And if you call their main number,
Yeah, but the poor PD guys, they're beating their heads against the wall because he said he had a truck sit out there.
So
and these guys are going.
I
to,
understand.
These guys are going to work in their pickup truck.
and every time that you call dispatch, there's a log,
Yeah.
which also helps create data.
Okay.
And as Counselor Farrell is saying, with that data,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
here to support the community, and they provide an excellent service that they
Right.
do.
Okay. Oh well, Karen's calling
If you
again.
if you hit 0 during the recording, Chief, correct me
Because
if
I
I'm
call
wrong.
Continental 3 or 4 times a week. I call every time I call. I say this is Karen calling, and they called me back, and I say good afternoon. This is Jason, because that's my business line, and that's what I am. Oh, I'm sorry, I have the wrong phone number. So I said okay, bye bye.
All right.
But yeah, I'll keep a log. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carrie Da Silvera, and I live on West Road also. And I have been there 38 years. My kids grew up in Londonderry. They graduated from Londonderry schools. And I'm a happy camper here, so I'm not going anywhere. But I'm just here to ask, okay, the representatives of the town of Londonderry to help me or help us with the speed limit, with the speed. If there is so much, I'm not talking just about the traffic. I understand we now live in a very, on West Road, which is a lot of traffic, but I'm asking about the speed. These people go, and I mean in general, I'm not just speaking of the truck company, but in general, they go 60 miles per hour. I have on my Ring camera, you don't even see them. And at nighttime, the Ring camera wakes me up because they go so fast that it picks it up and picks up the light of the trucks or anybody. Motorcycles, it's traffic in general. But there has to be something that the representatives can do about the traffic in that road, about the speed limit. I did this couple of years ago. I called, and they did put one of those speed signs, like when you go by, it tells you your speed. That didn't really do anything. It didn't matter to the people speeding. And right now, at this point, my mailbox is across my house. So I have to walk every day to go pick up my mailbox. I don't know what time to do it anymore because I was waiting too late in the evening, 7, 8 o'clock. I'm afraid of the bears now. I won't go. At any time of the day, I'm afraid to cross the street to get my mail or also get out of my driveway. It takes me forever because there's just traffic going back fast. It is very dangerous.
So-
And I speak for the whole West Road, the children of West Road. Right now, there's a new family next to my home that they have children. And I mean, it is our responsibility, all of us, as citizens and people who run the city, the town, I'm sorry, to do something about the safety, my safety, and the safety of the rest of the people there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, so being that we have on our agenda later on a public hearing regarding ordinance 2024-10, the amendments to the municipal code title II, traffic safety code, speed limit and trucking regulations, can there be amendments made to that and added? Because correct me if I'm wrong, the council can adjust that, correct?
Yes, you can. I would suggest it may not be a best practice to add roads to this list that were not noticed as part of the first reading, but I think, yes, the answer is amendments can be made.
But West Road is already 30 miles an hour, right?
Not according to this.
Is it 30 or 35?
I think it's a 35, to be honest.
Okay. 35.
I mean, Mr. Chair, that's something that we could easily process as a separate amendment.
Okay.
With a first reading and a public hearing. That can be done relatively quickly, but I would advise against just adding roads, because there may be people who want to weigh in the other way. I mean,
Right.
I suspect that there aren't a lot of people who think that, yeah, people, I'd like to continue going 60 miles an hour on West Road, but, I think we should give the public a chance to participate in that.
Is there anyone else in the public that would like to address the council regarding traffic or speed limits? Why don't we, I think your suggestion is a mindful approach, the best approach. So why don't we deliberate as a council and then, direct you to notice first hearing and public hearing and stuff?
Yeah, I think
For an
that.
amendment?
Correct. I mean, I think that if the council's comfortable proceeding with the Gilchrist amendment, that's been pending for a while, and I think it probably makes sense to get that done tonight so
Yep.
that we can post Gilchrist.
Yep.
But yeah, I think with the council's consensus, I can notice it as I'll put it on for a first reading at the next meeting, notice it publicly, and then we can do the public hearing in October.
Council good with that?
Sounds good.
And I'll phrase it in a way that it's not just to, make the amendments, that it's to look at other potential options as well.
Sean?
I want to be very careful as much as I empathize with what's going on in West Road. I think this comes into, and I'm glad the master plan committee is talking tonight, but we hear frequently complaints from many roads in town. And if we start making adjustments, we don't know what it can happen to the next road over. We've got to be really thoughtful of how we do these roads in town, and I'd rather get it right and address everybody in town's problems with traffic. There's all kinds all over the place. And I think seeing the results of some of the preliminary results of the survey for the master plan committee, it's good to have the entire town weigh in on this, because this is a town-wide problem, and we've got to make sure we provide a town-wide solution.
So, a couple elections ago, we had a proposed town-wide speed limit adjustment to 30 miles an hour. And correct me if I'm wrong, that was voted down.
That was voted down.
Yeah. What you have to keep in mind here is that, if you decide, in order for the police to be able to do their job properly, they should have one speed limit in town for them to be able to do enforcement correctly. They can't control the state roads, but we can control the other 172 miles. Then it's easy for them to enforce it. They don't have to say, am I in a 35, and I am in a 40, am I in a 25? They know what it is. And keeping in mind that we get no revenue from writing speeding tickets. So it enables them to be in a position to educate and to teach people. So I take your point very well. If we don't give them the right set of tools and continue to make it confusing, we're not going to improve the service. So I agree.
I agree with that as well. So, Mike, let's table this and maybe have it as a further discussion on the council. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, folks, we're still in public comment.
Hi, Tina Valentine, 31 Mountain Home Road. Here to discuss the proposed short-term rental ordinance. So I'm here today to say that I am in favor of it. So as a neighbor to an existing short-term rental, I think this ordinance will help to alleviate some of the issues we've had over the last about year and a half or so. Some of the issues, we had guest trespassing on private property, late night disturbances, increased traffic on a narrow cul-de-sac road, and just in general, general disruption to the neighborhood. So regarding the ordinance, I do have a couple of suggestions to offer up. One being to add a maximum occupancy limit. This will prevent a party house environment and avoid large gatherings in, just this one location. I would suggest 10 guests per property. The second would be a fee, a registration fee, or renewal fee that's done yearly. That'll help cover the costs for, implementing the permits and any enforcement efforts. So somebody that's directly impacted by these rentals, I believe that the ordinance is needed so that we can ensure that the short-term rentals are operated in a way that, preserves this peaceful community. And think that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Evening, Council. I'm Wagner Dos Santos, the owner over at 34 Mountain Home Road. My home currently is being used as a short-term rental property. Purchased my home in 2021, July. We lived there for about a year and I lost my job and we had to move out. And so we didn't lose our home. We had to short-term rental it. And it's been a blessing, but we intend to return to the home once the finances permit. But I am in favor of having some sort of ordinance to have a registration of short-term rental owners in Londonderry. It's a very important registration to have. So if there is any issues that happen outside the hours of the owner being able to see the property through cameras or being present, for somebody responsible to call and let them know there is something going on, for them to be able to respond appropriately to whatever is happening before they end up utilizing city resources to stop a party, a trespassing, or anything that will disturb the peace of the neighborhood. And so I am in favor of such ordinance. I believe that will put owners of short-term rentals in a better position, keep the neighbors at ease, prevent any harassment measures from anyone in the neighborhood against short-term rentals. And yes, that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Good evening, Debbie DeRochers. I'm here tonight for the town clerk's office. I just wanted to give you an update on our dog registrations. I'm very happy to say that we are down from last year at this time. We had about over 900 dogs that were still unregistered, which is a very crazy amount to try to get a hold of and get that number down. I'm happy to say that at this year, as of today, we are down to 162 this year. So as of today, if someone came in and they had a dog that was under civil forfeiture, they would be paying about $39 per dog. So we don't like taking the money. We don't want to take the money, but we have to according to the state laws. Come in and register your dog. People have been great about the response from all of our emails. The town clerk's office, as well as myself and police department, Dave, our animal control dog officer, he has been working really hard to get this number down also. It makes it easier on everybody if you just register your dog. $7, $10, $3 for senior citizens per year, every April. Come on down and do it. We don't want to have to do forfeiture legal action, which is the last thing we want to do. It doesn't help anybody. Let's just get those dogs done and make it easy. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share with you, Sherry Farrell, your town clerk, something that our Secretary of State has brought in to support our veterans and our election. Our general election coming up is November 5th, and this is just an incredible program. It's called Vote in Honor of a Veteran. And I'll just read it to keep it a little bit quicker. The Secretary of State's office is pleased to launch its Vote in Honor of a Veteran program, which gives New Hampshire voters the opportunity to recognize the veterans and service members in their lives who protect the most precious freedom we have, the right to vote. And it's a wonderful program that our Secretary Scanlon has brought to us. How do you participate? It's really, really very simple and quite beautiful. You just have to go to the www.sos.nh.gov website, and we'll make sure we put this around town more. And you just write a brief few sentences about why you picked that certain veteran or person who is presently serving. And then our Secretary of State's office sends you this beautiful Vote in Honor of a Veteran pin, which is, it's really a beautiful pin that not to wear all the time, but on Election Day, November 5th. And I think it would be phenomenal if in our town we saw hundreds of these just all around as voters were coming in to vote. And you can vote for someone more than once. And again, it's a beautiful pin. It was actually designed by a Navy veteran that gave his time to do this. There's so many people in this room that are deserving of this honor. I chose to do my first one on Chairman Franz. I know him well, and I know he served as a Marine for all of us. He served in combat, and it was an honor to write. And I could go on and on about his service above self, and so many of you in this room honor that. But so, Chad, I'll be wearing this in honor of you on Election Day, November 5th. So please go to the Secretary of State's website. Think of people you know, love, your neighbor that has served, and let's have a sea of these around on Election Day. Thank you.
Can I give you a hug?
I'm a hugger.
No. I couldn't resist.
Man, those allergies are bad. All right, anyone else for public comment?
Yeah, I've got one thing here. So I experienced something today that I've only experienced a few times recently. I call it the Market Basket Miracle. I went to Market Basket today and spent less than $100.
Must have been a small basket.
Small basket,
Pack of gum.
very little protein. I spent like $92, and I still haven't figured out what I bought. The reason I bring this up is we're going into budget season, and I've been traveling recently and everything, and have really started to recognize the cost of everything. I mean, and as we're going into budgets, you look at it, everything, as far as I can tell, is up anywhere between 5 and 20%. Even if you go into the New Hampshire State Liquor Store, if you were to buy a bottle of wine that was $15, it's now $19. As I go, I just went to a conference and everything, and it all comes down, we look at it and say, if you're going to manufacture something, it's costing more to manufacture it. Then you gotta transport it, logistics, and then you have to keep it in the supply chain, and then it's got to find its way to the consumer, and someone has to get it there, and those people's wages had to go up to offset costs. So as we go into the budget season, what I want to call to the government bodies is that we need to be careful. We need to take this into consideration. We can't keep pushing more dollars out onto people. We have to take care of our employees. That is our number one priority. And more people need to experience what is now the Market Basket Miracle is, can you get out for under $200? I mean, really think about this. I mean, this is disgusting that I'm actually bringing this up and everything, but this is the trend we're going through. And us as a council and the other governmental bodies have to keep this in mind, that we can't keep asking. We have to look at what is really needed to continue to support this aging community that we live in and what's necessary for that. So the next time you leave Market Basket and you say to the cashier, which is I said today, I got the Market Basket Miracle. They laugh, but they also look at you and there's one young lady looks at me, she goes, yeah, it doesn't happen much anymore. Think about that. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Excellent point, Sean. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. New business, Section C, Memorandum of Understanding for a Behavioral Health Hospital at 6 and 10 Innovation Way to address safety policies and demand on municipal resources. So just to tee this up for Megan, Attorney Courier, our town council or attorney we have been working as a council and with the applicant and regarding an MOU. Megan, if you could take over from there.
Absolutely, yes. So I'm Megan Carrier. For anyone that doesn't know me, I'm the attorney that's representing the town on this negotiation. So this agenda item relates to an 89,000 square foot behavioral health hospital, which is proposed at 6 and 10 Innovation Way. The applicant for the project is Terrytown Real Estate Holdings, Inc. On May 1st of this year, the planning board granted conditional approval of a site plan application relating to this project. And one of those conditions required the applicant to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the town regarding safety policies and the demand that the hospital will have on municipal resources. The condition of approval specifically required that the Londonderry Town Council approve that memorandum of understanding. Since that time, I've been assisting the council to negotiate the terms of that MOU to come up with something that satisfies that condition. Ari Pollock, who is the attorney representing Terrytown, is here tonight as well, I see, with his clients. Early in the negotiations, the parties identified a set of safety procedures that all found to be satisfactory, and those terms have remained essentially the same throughout the negotiation process. The terms, the bulk of the negotiations have been aimed at identifying and assessing the demand that the hospital is expected to have on the town's municipal resources, with a specific focus on police and emergency services. And throughout that process, the town has made an effort to support any monetary proposal with the research and data that it has been able to uncover. The parties exchanged a number of drafts of the MOU reflecting various approaches to addressing this municipal resources issue. 3 drafts have been exchanged since last Thursday, September 19th. Specifically on the 19th, Terrytown proposed a version of the MOU which incorporated a payment of $4 million to be paid prior to the certificate of occupancy. The MOU reflected the payment would be allocated by the town council to its municipal departments in its judgment and for the best interests of the town. On the 21st, the council authorized me to send Terrytown's attorney a revised version of the agreement, which retains that $4 million payment and added a requirement that beginning 4 years after the issuance of the CO, the parties would conduct an annual review intended to essentially balance tax revenues against the demand on the hospital. Obviously, if the costs associated with the demand exceeded the tax revenues, an additional payment would be owed, and if it didn't, then no payment would be owed. On the 22nd, so yesterday, Terrytown sent back a revised version. This version eliminates the balancing process I just described, but increases that $4 million payment to $5 million. $500,000 of this payment would be made within 6 months of the planning board executing the site plan in order to allow the town some advance funds to hire and train police officers in advance of the hospital opening. The remainder would be paid on or before the issuance of the CO. This version of the MOU also incorporates the parties' agreement that any final amendment to the site plan approval will trigger a requirement that the parties meet and discuss whether the MOU should remain in effect and whether any amendments are appropriate. The goal for tonight is for the council to discuss that most recent version of the MOU. And so with that, I will turn this over to consideration by the council.
All right, thank you, Megan. So for clarification purposes, the most recent series of negotiations, there was a $4 million proposal from the applicant to the council. The council countered agreeing with the $4 million, but have a reevaluation. Is that correct?
Correct, yes. That would begin 4 years after the issuance of the certificate of occupancy.
Thank you. And then the applicant rejected that and countered again for a $5 million offer. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Well, at council, it's open for discussion. What do you say?
I'd say we move forward with the agreement that is before us. It's a sound notion for us to move forward.
I disagree. So I believe that what was proposed in the beginning, the annual review, was in the best interest of the taxpayer. I think the current agreement that we're looking at is not in the best interest of the Londonderry taxpayer. The $5 million even with interest and other investments that Justin would be able to get us, the money would probably run out in year 6 or year 7. So the taxpayer's on the hook after that. The tax revenue that would be generated would not offset the expenses. So I do not believe that this current agreement is in the best interest of the taxpayer in Londonderry.
Okay. Any other comment from the council?
I would say I agree with Ron. Without those protections in place for the Londonderry taxpayer, the liability of the town is just too great of something for me to feel comfortable going forward with.
John?
I think you have to step back and look in what the laws of the state are and the process that was followed. The organization came here to this council and asked for a rezoning. Rezoning was voted on and granted by this council. They then followed the law, went to the planning board, followed the process, and have an approved plan with only one conditional piece. In good faith and in reasonable negotiations, we went back and forth. If you look at what's in front of us as their final proposal for $5 million, they talked about during the planning board process that if there's probably a reasonable chance that they'll expand the hospital from 144 beds to 190 some odd beds. Written into this agreement is that we would revisit this MOU. Considering that nobody has a crystal ball and knows what can happen in the future, I think reasonable people could say that this is a very reasonable offer. I think you also have to step back and say these kinds of facilities are around the country and nobody has this kind of protection for their community at all. I think the protection that we're offering the community far surpasses anyone else in the country. Mm-hmm. So to say that we're not doing this in the best interest of the Londonderry taxpayers, that's just not completely true. We have done what's in the best interest of the Londonderry taxpayers. We have done all the right things. We have fulfilled our obligations, and we have been reasonable. The applicant has made the claim that the calls won't be what they're going to be. We've gotten assurances from the state that they're going to be actively engaged, and we've gotten the assurances from the highest level that they will work with us to make sure that the hospital is operating correctly and that the services that are being provided are being done correctly, and that they're there to hold them accountable as well. So the Londonderry taxpayers have been served better than any other taxpayer in the country that has a facility with this organization. That's the facts.
Thank you, Councilor Farrell. So, if I recall correctly, when we did the zoning amendment to the ordinance, hospital was defined but not permitted. And what we did was we added hospital as a permitted use for the Gateway Business District. And from my understanding and my belief, that is all that the council did.
The HHS deputy commissioner was here and told us what the facility was going to be.
I understand that.
We knew exactly what it was going to be.
But for all intensive purposes, all we did was vote to allow hospital as a permitted use in the Gateway District. And the way I look at it is I put a lot of thought into this. And when you look at a call, and I did ask what a run card was from the PD, and I asked how staffing works. I'm sorry, from fire, and I asked how staffing works for the PD with their shifts and schedule, and the policies that are in place. If there was a call the policy would be to send 2 police units. Say there's a medical call. So we're saying Medic 3 from Central, which is a 2-person company, would go up to that call. An engine company of 3 would go to that call as well. So that's 5 people just from fire alone. 2 units from PD. A battalion chief, depending on the level of severity of the call, if it's Charlie, Delta, Echo, or whatever. A shift supervisor, so we're talking 9. What if there's a situation that there's 2 patients? We'd have Medic 4 come from Central, leaving North Station empty, Central Station empty, depending on mutual aid. I'm aware that there are always, not always, that there are often contemporaneous calls going on at one time. So say that situation where there's 9 or 11 first responders on that scene, and another call comes in, CPR in progress. We're taking Station 2, who has 3, manning Medic 2, or their medic, to respond, as well as a mutual aid engine company. That's 2 calls. And we are, on the fire side, 100% depleted. All companies in service. And while I appreciate the negotiation from Terrytown and the commitment to be reasonable, my concern is, and I understand, I heard investment of $5 million and stuff like that. But as John mentioned at the beginning, things aren't getting cheaper. Fire engines aren't getting cheaper. Police cars aren't getting cheaper. Personnel is not getting cheaper. Training isn't getting cheaper. And at the end of the day, where does that burden lie? And for me personally, I found solace, if that's the right word, or I found peace knowing that there was an option. And I understand if the build out happens, we would renegotiate an MOU. But we're talking a significant amount of beds. And the opportunity for our community to not receive the care that they paid for, that they expect. And again, we are an aging community. The average response time in the north sector for a mutual aid engine is 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes that a patient who could be in a motor vehicle accident with entrapment is sitting there. And that concerns me.
We're not supposed to get into operations of how things work. So why don't we ask the experts? Police Chief, why don't you tell us what you think?
Can we be more specific about the question you'd like me to answer?
You're getting $5 million to deploy against this and to support this facility alone over the next 4 to 5 years.
So, as discussed earlier in prior meetings, as was alluded earlier, we talked about what the needs of the police department would be. We talked about what the financial burden to the taxpayer would be. We talked about what that looks like over the course of a hiring process from start to finish. We spoke about what the dollar amount would be for the officers that we feel adequately would be able to staff that part of town. We provided, with the help of the finance director, the appropriate dollar amount that we feel would be a need. And it seems to me that these meetings have taken place. The funds have been discussed. As far as what I need, the need from the police department is 6. The dollar amounts that have been presented would cover, as discussed in these agreements. So anything beyond that time frame, I think, Counselor, you had mentioned by year 5 or 6. I didn't project out that far, but I know that Mr. Campbell would have that exact number. I believe that it would suffice for the police department side of the house for that. And again, I can't speak for LFD, but my side of the house, that would be fine.
Let's hear from the fire chief. Keeping in mind, they're still going to pay taxes.
Thank you very much. The first time Tarrytown came before us, you were the chairman at the time, invited the chief and I up to speak and to get our take on things. And what I said, through experience, advocating for the taxpayer and the resident first, is that anytime a new business comes to town, obviously it strains the service. There's a draw on the service. Following the police chief's lead, him and his team did an outstanding job collecting data and fact. Remarkable job. Taking his lead, the fire department also did the same. And using the resources we had, we called other communities throughout the country that have Acadia Health involved in their communities. We called those fire departments and said, give us some facts, give us the data. What do you experience on your departments? Some departments didn't return phone calls. Other departments were very wishy-washy in their comments, wouldn't commit one way or another. But what we did find, and again, these are the numbers through other departments, is that it's about 1 call a day. Now, that's a fact that we were, or a piece of data that we were able to ascertain. However, there's data and there's fact, and then there's experience. And a man with an experience is not at the mercy of a man with an opinion. We know when something similar came to town at the Elliott Urgent Care, we were told 6 calls in a year. We did 12 calls in the first day. So, falling back to experience, because that's what we do when we don't know what to do, we fall back to experience. Although we're being told 1 call, similar to us being told 6 calls that were exceeded in the first 24 hours of operation, it's reasonable to assume from my position that it will be more than the 1 call per day. I've seen it. My history and my experience in running back-to-back-to-back calls at Elliott has proved it. There's also no mechanism, and it would be very disingenuous and not truthful and not fair, quite frankly, if I came up here and just said, we need X amount of firefighters because, well, what's the delta? What's the why? There is no mechanism in place. I can just tell you what we found through our research, taking the police chief's lead, that it's 1 call a day. Experience tells me otherwise. And anyone else in this community that's been here for as long as the urgent care has been can speak to the same. And so that's what I would offer you.
So the $5 million helps.
Money always helps.
And you knew exactly what kind of hospital was going in here after they met with the town council.
Me personally?
Yeah, it was presented that night, right?
It was.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
All right. Any further discussion from the council? So,
I know it's not a public hearing. I'm asking for permission to speak.
please, thank you.
Thank you. I'm Ari Pollack. I'm an attorney at the Gallagher firm in Concord. I've been representing Tarrytown, the applicant, throughout this process, as was discussed by a number of speakers, and I won't belabor the point. We started at the zoning level. We went to the planning board on a site plan review, and we ended up with a condition of approval that required a memorandum of understanding on public safety. It was open book. We knew this was coming. We accepted the condition, and upon receiving that condition, we entered into negotiations with the town. We've had town councilors, the chief of police, the town attorney, all participating with us in these discussions. What we found as the conversation went forward is that the memorandum of understanding was based upon a series of assumptions, a series of what-ifs and hypotheticals about what this facility would look like and how it would behave in the town of Londonderry. We did our best to find data that related to other systems, other locations, other similar locations, other operations within New Hampshire. And frankly, my conclusion, I'm not speaking for others, but my conclusion was that it was very difficult to find direct comparisons, that you end up needing to understand the lived experience before you can figure out what the true needs would be. Services that every other taxpayer receives for the benefit of their taxes were essentially deemed to be insufficient because of the unique nature of this facility and because of the unknowns that related to this facility. We started searching for a way to bridge that gap, to provide comfort. Again, a multi-person participation over the course of multiple discussions, emails, drafts. You heard a summary of them tonight. This was a seriously labor-intensive effort, and it continued until this evening, frankly. Our mission at some point turned to acknowledging that there was not a crystal ball, that the number of calls for service could not be a finite guess at this moment for this facility. And what we instead decided to do was focus on giving the town and its experts, police and fire, emergency services, 911 support, the tools that they would need above and beyond our tax payment, which would be annual and significant, a for-profit enterprise, no alternative but paying the taxes, giving the town the tools that it would need to essentially create an endowment. And that's what this money is intended to be. It's intended to be seed money to do whatever, frankly, the town in its wisdom on budgeting, the town in its input from department heads feels it is necessary to prepare for this facility. The research doesn't end, the conversation doesn't end, the participation doesn't end. One of the things that was summarized as far as other parts of the MOU, a continuing relationship between the town and this operator, an expert in the field of behavioral health and therapy, to have a continuing relationship there. We've got safety procedures, we've got training workshops, we've got an ongoing dialogue. We're going to be located right in town. We're not going to be strangers. We're going to be available and accessible and part of the fabric of the community. We also have targeted a non-residential area, which is why the rezoning was popular in the first place. The consequence, of course, is it puts it at a far distance from the police resources. However, that again was something considered when we discussed the MOU, and again considered when we thought about what's the appropriate amount of endowment funds to launch this in the right direction and give that discretion to the people who can exercise it and need it most. I think that's what we've done here. I'll leave you with one other piece of information. The more recent discussions that we've had boiled down to a cost per service or a cost per call for service. All we can do is look at the prior iterations of the budget and the police logs, and I think the number ranges from year to year, right? The number that's budgeted to the police force changes, the number of calls changes. But over the last few years, there have been some number of hundreds of dollars associated with each call in terms of dividing budget by number. I think for this year, we were provided the number $350 per call. Maybe that holds, maybe that changes as the year rolls over. $5 million at $350 per call is 14,000 calls for service. That is a tremendous number of calls for service that would be protected by this endowment, plus annual taxes every year. So I ask you to think about what more you could ask for than a lump sum endowment in your trusted hands, working with your experts to put this facility on the best track forward to address not only national and state issue, but also a regional issue, which is, of course, why we've got the support of the highest levels of state government as well. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you, Attorney Pollock.
Mr. Chair, if I may. I think one common thing said by people from the council and said by Mr. Ari is that none of us have a crystal ball. None of us know what this is going to look like. We don't know if there's going to be a lot of service calls. We don't know if it's going to be just a fine neighbor. We don't know. And that's part of my issue, is just having to guess with the future of the residents of this community. The only way I saw fit to move forward with that guess, with the hands, with our police, with our fire, and the men and women that contribute and serve, is to have that evaluation after we have solid data, after we know, after a period of time, that we know this data is going to be the data moving forward. And we can all come from a place where this is what it is, then we know. And if it's not enough, we can reevaluate. And from that, I felt from a place of certainty, I could make that decision. But because we have to look in a crystal ball with the way this is set up, this is why I cannot support this.
So as the person who wrote the framework that you just discussed, because I did, and then passed it on to be cleaned up and everything, I understand what you're saying. They rejected that, and they increased it from 4 million to 5 million. At some point, you know, we got to step back and look at it and say, are we being reasonable? I don't know the answer to that question. But I do understand what you're saying. You know, they don't find that acceptable. I mean, if there was other language that would, you know, that would get us there, I'm sure somebody would have come up with it by now. But I do understand what you're saying, having been the person who wrote it. Mm-hmm. But I'm also the person who wrote in that same framework that if they expanded the hospital, they had to come back to the table. So I didn't get everything. I got something, and got another $1 million. So, got to ask yourself, you know, and I think I'm the one who first said, I kept looking around for my crystal ball. I don't have one. But nobody, I mean, the Woodmont agreement that we have today doesn't exist anywhere else in the country. This agreement doesn't exist anywhere else in the country. So when we say we're not doing the best for the Londonderry taxpayers, that's what bothers me. We're not disenfranchising the taxpayers. We did do our best. Everyone may not agree, but we did do our best for the Londonderry taxpayers.
And I think that reasonable people can reasonably disagree.
I agree.
And at the end of the day, from my 1 of 5 perspective, that was in these discussions with our town attorney, that our proposals were reasonable. And that's what I have to say to that. Megan, let me rephrase that. I see two ways that the council can proceed. So a decision needs to be made if the council will approve that most recent counteroffer that was sent from the applicant today. And that would be in the form of a motion.
Yes.
You either make a motion to deny or approve.
So
someone who's not in favor of the agreement can make a motion to deny. Or make a motion to approve if you're in favor of the agreement.
So at this time, I'll ask someone to make a motion, period. There is no motion on the floor.
Nobody seconded.
At this time, I'll make a motion to approve our current agreement that is in front of us.
Okay, so I have a motion on the floor from Ted to approve the most current MOU for a behavioral health hospital at 6 and 10 Innovation Way to address safety policies and demand on municipal resources. Do I have a second?
Well, somebody has to second it. It would be nice if it didn't have to be me who wrote the whole framework. So you guys aren't going to second it and put it to a vote? It's got to go to a vote, guys. You're not going to second it. Nobody else will second it. Then I'll second it.
All right.
It's got to go to a vote.
So we have a motion from Ted, a second from John. All in favor of accepting or approving the most recent MOU from the applicant, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Chair votes nay as well. The MOU, the council rejects the most recent proposal. All right, thank you. Reverend Morrison Meeting House Study Committee presentation. Derek and Larry, are you present? So to tee this up, Derek, you are the vice chair of the Reverend Morrison Meeting House Study Committee.
Yes, sir.
And Larry is a member at large. Is that correct, sir?
I'm a voting member.
Voting member, thank you. So the council, just to back up a little bit, the council had charged the committee to make a decision on options and present some options on what to do with the Reverend Morrison Meeting House. And at that time, do we still have a quorum?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's still three of us.
All right. So at that time, gentlemen, if you have a presentation,
Yes.
Mike, can you pull that presentation up?
Oh, it's open.
Okay, perfect. All right. So Derek, I'll turn it over to you and Larry for your presentation.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So as you had stated, we are looking into what is the best way to get the Reverend Morrison Meeting House back open to the public. It has taken us some time to get to the point that we are at, just due to some internal discussions back and forth. But we have finally, made our way through the mud, and we are finally at a point now where we can present at least something to you. And with that, we have some action items for now, and then some potential action items moving forward. So here on slide 1, it's really just what the meeting house is today, right? So it's keeping the town history. That is one of the biggest things we're looking at here. It's one of Londonderry's last true small town feeling places, right? And when I say that, it's right in the center of town. In the center of town, you have the old churches, you have all of our apple orchards, you have Max Apples, and you have this, right? So it is something that we all pride ourselves on here in the center of town, is with keeping industry out, right? On top of that, what we're trying to also showcase is the meeting house itself. It is not just a piece of our history, it is also a piece of our future. So having new generations come in, new families come in from outside of Londonderry, it's something that we want to show from a historical significant factor and keeping that moving forward. And we could move to the next slide. So with that being said, we have phase 1. Phase 1, we have the needs and actions. I do know that I have 15 minutes, so I am going to paraphrase. We have to understand the needs of town code. We have to understand the overall stability of the building, cost of renovations, cost of water diversion, as well as the potential need for a GM for the project. From that, you move over to our action items. Initial code inspection. We did have an informal meeting with the town to kind of present to us what their thoughts were of what they could see. And that is the biggest point to make, is what they can see. We took that information and decided that we needed to hire a structural engineer. We do understand that the town did have that done before by another entity, but the entity that we are looking at is somebody that is very well versed on post and beam, as well as historical buildings. So they are actually currently working on 3 individual town hall projects in New Hampshire. They go in and they look at the stability of the building, the safety, as well as the ADA compliant. Just due to the fact that it is a historical building, it does fall within some other realms of rules. Then we have step 2 of the process, which would be obtaining quotes for the renovation, obtaining quotes for water diversion, the need for quotes from a structural standpoint, and the potential need, again, to obtain a GM. That would all come after the meeting with the structural engineer. We need to have a true understanding of somebody getting in there and telling us what is really happening, and not a very overlapping cost projection on what is not truly known. Then step 3 in that would be to present our final findings to you guys again, and present, hopefully after that, present the town to vote. If we could go, oops, I apologize.
No apology needed. Doing a great job on the presentation. Can you explain those options
Yeah.
that you just said, regarding the steps up to a vote, please?
Yeah. Step 1 through 3?
Please.
Yes. So within step 1, we did meet with the town inspector to get an initial idea of code. Again, they could not dig into all the areas that need to be specifically fixed and or updated, as well as specific information due to the fact that it is a historical building. And with it being a historical building, it does fall under different sets of codes. But at the same time, that could be with the potential of how much you keep historical. So that is really why this structural engineer would be very much needed, not only from a structural perspective, but they would also work with us on ADA compliance, as well as code compliance. They would also work with us of the stability of the building, and then also help with potential build out. And when I say build out, I mean renovation. So within step 1, those really need to be done prior to us receiving quotes for the renovation, water diversion, and then the potential need for structure. So what this engineer will tell us is if we need those items to be covered, right? If we do not need any further structural stability, we will not need to get quotes from a structural perspective, just a renovation perspective. And then same for the water diversion, as I think most people know, that the floor is caving in. Even though that's caving in, that does not mean the structure of the building is not sound as a whole. You may have some weak points within the floor, but that does not mean that the building foundation is a true issue. So that's why we need to have that structural engineering come first before we start understanding what we need to obtain from a quote perspective.
Thank you.
No problem.
Can I ask a question?
Please, most definitely.
So let's say we didn't have an additional structural engineer and we went off what the town went. Could you gather those findings? And I'm not saying in favor one way or the other, I'm just asking the question.
Yeah. So I would, you're asking if we could go just based off of what we currently
What
have.
the structural engineer analyzed, yeah, if it's possible to go forward on with that.
So they gave us a more high-level understanding of what was needed, not from a true structural standpoint. It was more of meeting current town code needs, as well as fixing the main floor and shoring up the building as a whole, but not from a true structural standpoint. And what we want to ensure is the structure sound enough to actually hold up the building and ensure that it is even worthwhile to renovate, to fix all the issues that are currently happening inside. So we, within, I do have it further on within HVAC issues and plumbing issues, as well as the main hall floor, and the ensuring ADA compliance, right? So what we got from the original report was very, very much high level. They did not go to the nit-grit details of looking at the actual structure itself. It was more or less coming into the building, seeing the floor, looking at what needed to be done from an HVAC perspective, from an electrical perspective, from a fire perspective, and again, shoring up that floor. But we don't want to waste all of our taxpayer money. So it would truly be, in my opinion, necessary to get this piece done first, especially from somebody that is well-versed in this style of construction. And that's what we have come to as a consensus with the entire committee. And I'm not sure if you want to touch base on that as well.
Yeah, there obviously was a lot of discussion and effort put into this project and getting us to this point, but some of the takeaways that I want to share with everybody have to do with things that we really didn't lose sight of. And public safety is number one. We want to make sure that moving forward long into the future, that the building is sound and that it can be operated safely for everybody involved. And that includes, structural considerations, accessibility, and environmental. And one of the things that we're acutely aware of is that now that the town has taken over management of this building and presumably will be responsible for what happens to it moving forward, we need to consider potential liability, both financial and legal, if anything happens to somebody that's using that building. So I think the consensus of our group is we don't want to cut corners. We want to make sure that we're dealing with a sound structure, that whatever we do, even if it's small steps in the first phase, that we do it in a way that's going to assure public safety and avoid any potential problems for the town. We also, are continue to talk about what an end state vision for the building would be, but I think generally our discussion has centered around it being what it was initially intended to be, a meeting house where people from the community can come together, to experience activities and that sort of thing. So one of the things we're very concerned about is taking a shortcut in the near term that might not contribute to the end state vision of the building and might have to be yanked and replaced. So we don't want to spend taxpayer dollars on a short-term fix that's going to be irrelevant as we move forward with later phases of the project. And we have experience with that as a town. 10 years ago, the floor was repaired. I believe the number came in at around $25,000 or $30,000. 10 years later, we have the same problem. So we wanted to take a longer view of things. And then in terms of the operation of the building, the Lions organization has been managing, whatever activities gone on inside that building up until recently. But we do recognize that if the town is making this available to the public for use, if it's being rented out for one purpose or another, that there is, a commitment required on the part of the town to oversee and manage that whole process. So I think what Derek's been pointing to is that we're really trying to make sure that the safety of the structure, safety of the building, safety of the features inside the building that accommodate the public are done right, and that we don't waste money or expose the town to any potential problems, keeping public safety top of mind.
So what are the options going forward?
Yes, most definitely. So we do have an option A and B currently set. So the one that is being presented currently is, again, opening up as a rental hall for the public use with no kitchen. Currently, it does have a kitchen in it. It would have to be renovated in such way to keep a kitchen. So this option is with no kitchen. The building would stay as it currently stands with just enhancements to ensure the structural integrity as well as of the building, as well as the compliance with the town code standards. It would allow it to be used for the public. And then again, the kitchen would be removed and allow for catering to be done. Some of the needs to do that, and again, these are the minimum needs from what we have seen thus far, would be some electrical work that would need to be done, some changes to the restrooms and plumbing, fire detection and alarm systems, kitchen removal, ensuring ADA compliance, HVAC, the main hall floor, as well as exterior water damage and any potential current rot. So that is option A. And then I will jump into option B. I'm sorry, the A benefits. I apologize. So the A benefits, I do have some benefits and drawbacks. So current benefits would be, it is the lowest renovation cost option out of the A and B option. It is another space for public use, for rental. Another location that the town can use for a cooling shelter, warming shelter, etc. And best way to keep and preserve the town history. Drawbacks kind of go with the positives. It is another place for somebody to rent in town that the town currently owns. And it is a potential low and slow return on investment, so the ROI would be elongated out just due to the rental intake. And potential for the town to cover any maintenance and utility costs if there is low rental usage, and potential for pulling rentals from the Historical Society as well as the current senior hall. And
So
then
I have a quick question on option A. So does the kitchen have to be removed, or could it be blocked off, sectioned off? Is there?
So the kitchen itself as a whole, the room itself can stay. It's just, it would not have a kitchen in it anymore. It would be served as a
Prep area.
yes, prepping area.
It has residential stoves.
Yeah, it has
okay.
currently has residential stoves and a residential
So
fridge.
so nothing that would be, we're going way backwards. Like if we took a phased approach where we wanted to open it up first, and then we eventually wanted to get a kitchen, that wouldn't be an extraordinary cost to put that stuff back.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
that's what I was making sure. We weren't just removing.
Correct. So yes, that room would stay. The only additional cost would be the cost of the appliances.
Yeah.
And that actually is a good prompt for option B, which is a rental hall with the kitchen. So again, building would stay as it currently stands, just meeting current needs of town codes as well as structural integrity. The option would allow for the public to rent as before, but it would also include a kitchen. Minimal needs, for the most part, are the same. The electrical, restrooms, fire detection, ensuring ADA compliance, HVAC, main hall floor repair, water diversion, exterior rot, but the addition would be kitchen. And when we say kitchen, it is bringing it up to the standards of required needs from a kitchen standpoint. So you would need a true range type stove with proper ventilation, with proper extinguishing abilities, and then you would also need to ensure that it does have the proper exiting of that area due to the fact that it is enclosed, which it does currently have 2 exit points, both leading out, one leading directly outside and one leading to the main hall. So that would be the biggest part of that, and then you would obviously have to have proper ventilation out of the building for that hood.
And you're referring to a commercial grade kitchen that you might find in a restaurant?
Correct.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is the difference between these two options that you're presenting and what Mr. Wally had presented to us last year that were presented as options from our design consultant of basically exactly what you're presenting?
Yes. So it is, for the most part, almost exactly the same, just due to the fact that we have been asked to phase out the project. Phase 1 is just getting it back open to the public. Phase 2, which I do have further on in the presentation as well, is not the full information of phase 2, but it sets the stage for phase 2, if that makes sense.
I understand. So either way, either one of these will be a decently costly option as to be able to include ADA compliance, especially for bathrooms. We're going to most likely have to do quite a bit of renovation on the back or an addition onto the back to be able to properly suit those people who use this space.
So Ted, the big difference between the two proposals is that the one we got from Weston and Sampson is more of a big bang approach and everything else, and really didn't take into consideration the grants that are available for buildings like this under ADA. So in the time that I've been speaking to them and everything else, using a phased approach, including going for grants, looking for donations and everything else, which is what it appears is happening across the state with all of these older buildings. So the big bang approach, no one's spending $3.2 million, like my Market Basket Miracle, right? So what they're saying is like, hey, we want to take baby steps, put the building back in service. Maybe we can get a grant to like do the bathrooms. Maybe there's certain things we can get grants for. We can't get historic grants because the building is beyond being registered as historic. But in some cases, some of these buildings are taking 10 years to renovate. What I'm hearing them say is we got to start somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, Counselor, if I can just comment on that. I don't think we really know what needs to be done in terms of ADA compliance as an initial step. We're talking to a couple of organizations that would come in and do an evaluation of what we can do on a limited basis to move in the right direction from an ADA standpoint. But when I was part of the walkthrough that we did most recently, and there was some discussion about making some minor modifications to the bathrooms. There was more discussion about the entrance ramp coming into the building and the access points, but it was rather vague in terms of what exactly would need to be done. And I think part of what we would get out of the engagement with a structural engineer is to find out exactly what needs to be done in the short term and what the longer term vision might be in terms of full ADA compliance. So I can't tell you right now what needs to be done, and I don't think you can, Derek, in terms of specifically what needs to be done in those phased approaches to be compliant from that standpoint.
Okay.
But I would say that I would not foresee the need to do an expansion. What we're trying to do here is set it up with the current shell and really just work on what is existing within the current shell. No expansion perspective.
And just to amplify that point, we're focusing on the first floor of the building only right now. Understanding that as we move up in the building, more cost is going to be incurred.
Of course.
So walk me through slide 8, if you can, phase 1 estimated numbers. So
Yes.
we have the two options, the rental hall, pop up, rental hall without a kitchen, and the rental hall with a kitchen. We have the high, the low, the estimated yearly cost and potential revenue.
Yes.
So on the low ends, it's about $145,000 difference.
Roughly.
I'm a mathematician.
Roughly.
And then several more from the high ends. What do you mean high and low? Help define that.
Most definitely. So we have taken the current numbers that were given, as well as, I believe, as I stated to the council prior, in my background, I have been the director of quality and operations for multiple large organizations, and we have done build-outs across everything from IVF to where places that I worked. I used to work in an IVF clinic, so we did build-outs of that. We did build-outs of manufacturing plants for medical devices, offices for medical devices, so on and so forth, and as well as electronics of medical devices here in the U.S. and outside of the U.S. So within my role of overseeing a lot of these expansions of our business, I have been able to see what potential costs could be. Even currently where I work, we are talking about putting on a 15,000-foot expansion to the building to add additional offices so we can move some potential manufacturing to the front side of the building for US-based only. Those numbers are roughly anywhere between $3 million to $6 million. That is a full ground-up build, right? Full ground-up expansion. So in taking what I have for knowledge and knowing the current costs that have climbed, as well as using the numbers that were given by the previous engineering firm, this is how we came up with these estimated numbers. And I really want to put an emphasis on estimated numbers. These could come in potentially a lot lower, depending on the structural engineer and what they say would really need to be done from a structural standpoint as well as compliance standpoint.
So really the next step, as I'm processing this information, I believe is that you need a structural engineer to come in to assess the property and the needs, and also help me out, to assess the needs of the property and get it back to a basic use.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. With having the foresight of what the building could potentially be used for.
Do we have any estimates on how much a structural engineer, and was any structural engineer work done with the previous site renderings or?
Yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was it 25,000 that they had spent?
I'm not sure, but I will say this, Mr. Chairman. We've been in touch with a firm based out of Portsmouth that Derek alluded to earlier that is involved in projects, restoration projects with historic properties like this. And they've offered to come on site in the near future to do an assessment of the building on a pro bono basis and come back with a proposal on, what they see needing to be done, and also phasing the approach in a more granular level than we have been able to do.
Do they consider the previous work that was done through Weston and Sampson?
Correct. So they have already been provided that to even start the conversation with them, so that they had an understanding of what they were potentially coming to. So they have been given that information, they have reviewed that information, and feel that it is best fit to have a second company, whether them or not, come in and do a true evaluation on, with the knowledge of this style of structure.
So, next steps beyond this, what is needed to happen?
Beyond the structural.
No, beyond, my apologies. Next step, at the end of this meeting, what, and Mike, help me out, please. What are the next steps
Well,
from here?
I think that, so a couple things. One is just to amplify the points that have been made here and to respond directly to the council's questions. I think, as I understand it, where Weston and Sampson left off was essentially where they're picking up here.
Okay.
I don't believe that there was any kind of an in-depth structural assessment that was performed by an engineer. That was flagged as an item that would need to be addressed in the future. And that's where we are now.
Is it safe to say, Mr. Town Manager, that, so I believe I heard you just say that this proposed other company is going to pick up where the first one left off?
This other company or some other vendor. I mean,
Okay.
it is a professional service. It's likely a professional service, highly specialized, where it would be a quality-based assessment that would take place. My understanding is that there aren't too many of these folks around, so we would work with the committee to make sure that this was the most appropriate option. But next steps are one, getting an estimate, and I think that can be secured in fairly short order. Two, making sure that we have a funding source for that. I anticipate that we'd be able to accommodate that. And then 3, they have an expiration date on them unless extended by the town council. And I think the council should give some thought to what happens to the committee going forward.
So that decision needs to be made tonight?
Not necessarily.
Okay,
Not necessarily.
I have a question.
please.
So you're calling your potential revenue here. Why are you predicting that an option with a full kitchen would generate less revenue than without a kitchen?
Yeah, so because of the fact that the space is specific to the kitchen, we are basically estimating the fact that most people might want to have more room to bring their own food. With the way that the kitchen would have to be set up with the current layout that's there, the space cannot be fully utilized in that kitchen area. To if you were to bring food in, you'd have to set up additional tables to then have additional space taken. And when you take that into consideration, there is a town code of how many people can be in there with nothing in there, and how many people can be in there with tables and chairs in there. So if you're using up additional space for additional tables of food layout, because you cannot use the room as it is, because there's just a small serving table currently, kind of pass-through window. So if you cannot utilize that full kitchen space, you could potentially have less options of people who can go in there because of the fact of their size of party and having to set up additional tables to serve that style of food.
I guess it all would depend upon how much kitchen equipment you'd be looking to install and/or square footage you'd be looking to use.
Exactly. So without having a true view of vision of what we can do in that space, this is why we have, as I stated earlier, true estimate numbers.
So a pro bono estimate from this firm would, in my opinion, would be the next step. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. We would like them to come in, and what they would be doing is actually assessing the building. They would actually come in and fully assess the building, do their inspection. The estimate would be for the cost for them to actually write it up for us. So basically, it is them doing the work and holding the information until we
Gotcha.
submit payment to allow them to release that.
Gotcha.
And we think that to submit and complete, we think that will be how much? Ballpark?
I currently do not know, just due to the fact of I have never personally dealt with a company that is highly
Let me rephrase my
dependent
question.
on. Yeah.
To have that once they come in
Yes.
and do their inspection, would they have a better idea?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So that really seems like the next step is to have them come in, as you said, the inspection is pro bono,
Correct.
and then there would be a cost to receive their detailed analysis.
And that would be the estimate that we received is the cost on that analysis.
Okay.
Mr.
And
Chair.
we
And
have, real quick, if I may, we have the funds available to,
I can't imagine that we wouldn't for that kind of a thing.
okay.
Yes.
All right, Ted, please.
So we have our Director of Public Works here who may have an idea upon how much a structural engineer may cost in his experience and all his years in construction, and as well as working with Western Sampson. I was wondering if we might be able to get his opinion upon what a rough estimate would cost.
I'm going to ask instead, because we're not in public comment. Can, do you have a question pertaining to the Reverend Morrison Meeting House?
Very simply, I actually went in front of this board when they had public comment. The board wanted preliminary. I'm sorry, anyhow, the bottom line is I have another idea that I threw at this board that I want to throw at you guys just to compare because cost is a major factor, obviously.
Okay.
And that's all I want to do. And I think it's worth considering.
Can we continue with?
Phenomenal job they're working hard. I don't want to interrupt them, I just want the opportunity
Yeah.
to present.
Yeah. Okay.
I could quickly wrap the rest of this up, if that's okay.
I don't want to do an injustice to the time that you spent on preparing this, and I think that the information I have is invaluable, so please continue.
I appreciate that. So in my opinion, what the potential cost could be from a structural engineering perspective on something this size. And again, I don't know the exact cost just due to the fact of them being in that expertise field. But I would roughly estimate it anywhere being from 15 to maybe 30,000.
Can we fundraise for that?
We could. We
Legally-
also
legally?
Yes. And we also do have the potential ability to get that 50% funded from the state as well as a matching funds type.
Okay.
Due to the fact that the person that we have been talking with, and I'm sure any of her competitors that work in this space, there are grant type money available from the state of New Hampshire that would cover some of the cost of this up to 50%. So that is a huge piece. If we were to say even, $20,000, we would only have to ask for 10.
Do you have the information of what that grant is?
I do not.
Okay. Is there a way you could get that to me? Because
Yeah.
some of these grants are completely free and clear. Some of them have specific conditions, and I'd like to
Correct.
research what that comes with.
Yes. Yes, and
Thank you.
we do have Kirsten on that, and she is working with the specific person she is working with. This is their realm of working specifically on these type of buildings for other towns. But she is working on gathering that information and what the details are to obtain that potential
Okay, thank you.
50%.
Just one point, she is on the New Hampshire Historic Preservation as Board of Directors.
Okay. Thank you.
She'll be giving us probably the most up-to-date information.
Awesome. Thank you.
So any points that you have in closing?
Yes. I think the two quick last points I would like to make is exactly what you guys were asking prior, is how we would market and fund this, right? So we would not like to go directly just to the taxpayers' pockets, because those are all of our pockets. We definitely need to raise the awareness of this, right? And when we say raising the awareness, not only to the public, but the entire town. Not many people know of what this house even is, the meeting house, as well as the fact that we're even working on it, or working on doing something with it. I don't want to go through every piece of this, but we do need to have some marketing options, and the funding options would be, the residential would be warrant articles. We would definitely be reaching out to local businesses for donations of either services or goods, government grants, and then funding. The best thing about funding these days is you can do GoFundMe accounts, as well as go to local businesses for financial donations, and even have events at the meeting house. And the best part about it is, we do have somebody that is also on the arts committee, and had worked on the concert at the Commons, and has done a phenomenal job in getting funds raised for that. So it's a huge asset to this committee as well. And that's how we would move forward to try to obtain funds, so it's not solely coming out of the taxpayers' pockets.
I'd like to just commend you for that. Thank you for looking down all the available options. I think that's a phenomenal thing to do. So thank you so much.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Good work.
And then the last slide I'd like to present is just the phase 2 options, right? So we are talking about doing this in a phased approach. And we want to keep those options out there, right? When we're looking at renovating this, we want to keep the potential open for other options. And when I say that, we don't want to do something to have to tear it apart and redo it again. So when we do look at the engineering factors of what we would need to do and do the renovation, we will be taking the thought forward of potentially having an expansion of the hall on the back side of the hall to use as commercial rental, as it, something like a restaurant, some healthy food eating spots, something that can be utilized by the town, just as we do currently with some of the old homes that have been turned into restaurants and things around even neighboring towns. And the other piece of that is also a larger expansion of the rental hall to add some additional value in rental space. And that rental space can be used not only for everything that it's being used for now, from small weddings to birthday parties, etc., but also with the potential of having performing arts done in there. That is something that has been brought up quite a bit, of the fact that we do not have a space for that. And by adding a little bit larger expansion onto it, we would be able to utilize that building for those needs as well. And the last piece is question and comments.
All right. Well, how does the council want to proceed? What are our options, Mr. Town Manager?
Well, I think a consensus to proceed along the lines of the structural engineer at least getting the estimate about what that will cost, moving down that road seems to make a lot of sense. I don't think that there's any formal action required by the council. Like I said, I do think that you should give some thought to what role you see this committee continuing to play or not play. But that's not something that needs to be decided tonight.
Okay. Any other comments from the council? What do you want to do?
I think we should proceed with the structural engineer.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
John?
That's fine.
Okay. So we'll proceed with that, and let's connect on next steps. A discussion from the council for next steps with the committee.
Absolutely.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, gentlemen. Great
Thank you very much.
presentation.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your time.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
So, sir, we do have a pretty significant.
I'm here all night, and we had the comments at the beginning, which I understand. I didn't do it because my comment pertains directly to this.
Right.
So why would I make the comments at the very beginning, which had nothing to do with what was going on? So my opportunity should be now, and then I'll leave you. Just all it is. I'm not gonna ask you to feed me anything. I'm gonna feed you information, give you an opportunity to understand another option, and you can say goodbye to me.
So, public comment is just that, an opportunity that is stated.
What value is the public comment at the beginning when it pertains to a different sector of the different parts? Why wouldn't I wait in normal life? Wouldn't you wait to something that's connected to what you're dealing with? Why would you come up and start talking about something that has nothing to do with nothing or anything?
There was discuss.
This is this town, this is public comment.
I understand
I have
that.
a right. I waited my turn.
There was discussion about a proposed short-term rental zoning, and that's not on our agenda. And that happened during the public time comment. I understand that.
I come in here as a citizen
Sir?
of the town of Londonderry. Most people know me. I don't usually cause trouble, but I do have a right of opinion, and I do have a right. But why would I make, John, why the hell would I make it at the beginning when it has nothing to do with the item I want to talk about?
This is the process that we
Does
follow.
make sense?
This
It doesn't. You know it doesn't. I know you may not be. Come on.
this is the.
Think about
All
what
right.
you do at home
Sir.
and everything else. You go into,
All right, we're gonna end this.
I don't know, go into supper and say, okay.
Why don't you just let
we're
him
gonna talk
speak?
on TV program, not
I mean-
supper. I mean,
Otherwise I'm gonna make a motion to overrule the chair. Let the guy speak.
Maybe I can help.
I have an opportunity to speak because I have a lot of experience of what's going on, and I just want to throw, first of all, the committee's fantastic, they did a great job.
May you come up? May you come up and please state your name and address for the record and speak in the microphone.
As fast as I can, and I'll get out of here.
And I think that the residents and the community that's listening at home.
Residents have a right to hear what I have to say, and I appreciate the time you're giving me, Mr. France.
Thank you for your
And I did
time,
vote
sir.
for you, by the way. My name's Jerry Galesian. I live at 14.
May not again, but he voted for you the last time.
I don't know if I voted for you, John. Were you up? 14
Don't vote
Brookview
for
Drive,
me. I don't
Londonderry,
even
New
wanna run
Hampshire.
anymore.
Okay, let it be.
Sir, please continue. Thank you.
First of all, I want to clear up one thing. there's never been water in that place, under the floor. I've been there, some of my fellow Lions have been there. Where people come up with there's water in our place underneath, on the floor, on the break, is totally incorrect. We've had people crawl under there over the years. So that I want to clear up. Second of all the different things that we want for this building, for the public, for the general public, like the Lions have done over all the years and all the time. We've given almost $300,000 in scholarships for our town of Londonderry. And this is not a praise for the Lions. I'm just saying we've done a lot. We've had an open door policy. Oh, he's gone. Malaguti came and visited us at the Lions not too long ago, which was very nice of him, wherever he is. Thank you. And one of the things he mentioned was the fact that an open concept where the town can make use of the property. Well, we did that. Birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, groups of different nationalities, so forth and so on, politics, you name it, we had it in there. We also had in there for 6 months, the senior center was our place for free for no nothing while they were doing what they had to do to that. Again, these are all facts. All I want to do is tell you we started this problem off when we didn't have the money because it was $7,000 at the time because of the floor unfortunately caving in. We had nowhere to go to get it other than with the town, and that's because the company went out of business, blah, 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 blah. So I'm trying to go as fast as I can here. Now it's so the bottom line is what I'm saying. An idea would be financially, so it won't be on a taxpayer who has not had to pay much of anything there for 52 years, and all of a sudden they're going to have to pay money because somebody or something will have that building doing something with it. The way of getting around that and get numbers that are realistic numbers that the public can handle is probably an agreement between the Lions and the town again to work together and put their shares up of money, whatever it takes to take care of the place. That money, whatever it is going to be a hell of a lot less than some of these proposals, which you and I have both seen, at $250,000, $3 million in one case, so forth and so on. This organization, this committee, did a great job, worked their asses off and tried it, but they don't know the financial numbers. They have no way of knowing. They're not professionals in the financial numbers. All I'm saying is consider that. That's all I'm asking. Consider financially, it saves the town money. Accurately, it performs all the same things both the Mr. Malaguti was talking about, and accurately, it does allow you to know that there's no water under that floor. And when I challenged certain people on that in the past, they said, well, there's water on the outside, it rots the building over time. Everybody's your own house, that can happen too. That's a bunch of you know what. But anyhow, thank you. I just wanted to get the other fact, to give you another alternative, tell you where the finances would be best of all served. It all started because of the fires up at Red Jacket. When they had the fire, all of a sudden we re-inspected and all that. I'll go on for hours. You don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. John knows me well enough. He doesn't want to hear it. And I wish you all have a good beer tonight. Enjoy your night.
Gary, I wanted to thank you for your time and
You're
for your
welcome. My
comments.
pleasure. My pleasure.
And my apologies for the mix-up earlier,
That's
and
okay.
I appreciate
I just didn't see the logic of bringing this up at the beginning, which had nothing to do with this particular aspect of the articles we were covering. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, can I briefly?
Please.
First of all, I want to thank the gentleman for participating in a number of our meetings, and we did take his suggestion under consideration. But I also, I'm not a lawyer, but I think we've crossed over a threshold as a town in terms of taking control and responsibility for that building. And one of our major concerns is that we do this right and that we don't expose the town and the taxpayers to any financial or legal liability because of what might happen to somebody coming into that building moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anything from the council before we move on to the master plan update? All right, seeing none, we have Mr. Butler and Mr. Pinta from the Master Plan Steering Committee and the Planning Board Chairman, if I may, from your respective committees. Do you have a presentation for us?
All right.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Joining me tonight are my dedicated leadership team from the planning board, along with members of the master plan steering committee behind me. At the last town council meeting, not the last, but on the August 12th town council meeting, it was requested that the planning board visit to address a crucial question. Why have we chosen to pursue the master plan instead of simply updating all of our regulations?
Actually, the question was a little bit different than that since I asked it. The question was actually, why are we doing the master plan instead of the ordinances? Why aren't we prioritizing the ordinances first, which will affect the master plan?
Thank you. As many of you are aware, I was honored to be unanimously elected as chair of the planning board this year. On the night of my acceptance, I committed to two primary objectives: conducting a thorough review of our current processes, procedures, and regulations, and updating our 2013 master plan. I recognize that both of these tasks will not be easy. To answer the council's question, I believe the response is relatively straightforward. According to New Hampshire RSA 674-1, the duties of the planning board are clearly outlined. Section 1 states, "It shall be the duty of every planning board to prepare and amend from time to time a master plan to guide the development of the municipality. This includes considering areas outside of our boundaries that may impact our planning. Importantly, every planning board is required to periodically update the adopted master plan with funds appropriated for that purpose by the local legislative body." Until this year, no action had been taken to fulfill the wishes of our voting public, who have allocated funds for this very goal. I believe it's somewhere between 65 and 70,000 so far. So, what is the purpose of the master plan? The first section of New Hampshire RSA 674-2 states, "The purpose of the master plan is to set down as clearly and practically as possible the best and most appropriate future development of the area under the jurisdiction of the planning board, to aid the board in designing ordinances that preserve and enhance the unique quality of life and culture in New Hampshire, and to guide the board in performance of its other duties in a manner that achieves the principles of smart growth, sound planning, and wise resource protection. The year 2013 is not a reflection of our present reality. Londonderry has transformed significantly over the past 12 years. For the planning board to effectively redesign existing ordinances and regulations, we must have a clear and current plan. While I acknowledge that we're approximately 80% built out, to Mr. Farrell's point, I cannot in good conscience initiate substantial regulatory changes without an updated master plan. We need to understand the current desires of our community for the future of Londonderry. Through our master plan committee, we are actively seeking this input. A refreshed master plan, informed by community feedback, will guide the board and staff in shaping the remaining 20% of our development. I recognize that our resources are very limited, and the planning board is aware of these constraints. However, through collaboration between the board, the committee, and town staff, we are confident that we can update the master plan while simultaneously addressing any necessary regulatory changes identified throughout this process. While we know it will be challenging, we're committing to tackling it together. Our master plan steering committee has diligently gathered public input through our survey, and I hope you have all participated. Mike has the statistics up here. I'm gonna let Jeff go through what our current statistics are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of Town Council, thank you for this opportunity to kind of share where we are right now. Back in the end of August, middle of August, we launched a community survey that was designed to provide the first phase of collecting data for the master plan that looked at community vision, land use, and transportation. We were told at the time that we'd be lucky to get 500 respondents. As a committee, we basically said hold our water, and we have 1,219 responses as of today at 10:30 a.m. And this is this is where we have to absolutely acknowledge our community volunteers who have put in significant hours. We have 10 members on our committee with posting on social media,
attending events and, encouraging participants to share their feedback, to share their vision for Londonderry, to share how they look and you want the community to look and feel. Our goal as of last week was 1,000. Now this survey is going to be open through October 4th, and we're looking at 1,500 to kind of close it out. From a percentage standpoint, that's high. With the folks that are with our residents that we have that participate in our survey, 18 plus. It's a higher percentage than other towns that have been in this predicament. Again, kudos and all the work and heart and kind of commitment absolutely goes to the committee, who's since August have met weekly, and then we scaled that back to bi-weekly. It's a very much a community-driven affair. Mike, if you could go to the next slide, and we'll basically, these next slides will demonstrate who has responded. Obviously the majority of respondents are from full-time residents. We have a few seasonal residents, business owners make up a smaller percentage, but full-time residents have been the primary respondents. Next slide. That peace sign pie symbol illustrates where these respondents are coming in at, and each third really does look at, we are getting a good sample from north, south, and central. Next slide. Majority of respondents own their home or rent in the, own their home. We have some that obviously rent in the community, living with family and friends, and then other, other respondents as well. This one, it really kind of is showing the data that we're collecting, is a good starting sample. So if we look at how long have you lived in Londonderry, folks that have lived here more than 20 years, 41% have responded. Then if you add up the 1 to 5 to 6 to 10, you have 20% there, and then 11 to 20%. So right there, it's fairly down the middle. Age group is what we're definitely expecting, higher, with 45 to 64-year-olds, and then 35 to 44 years old as well. I still fall into the 35 to 44-year-old category. Next slide. We asked, the survey is anonymous, and all reasonable measures to only fill the survey out once have been, were made. But we did ask if they would like further information and how to stay involved with this process, and we're fortunate to have received 336 emails to keep folks updated. As I said, the survey closes on October 4th. We haven't opened up the actual kind of results about land use, vision, and transportation. And the reason for that is because of any biases or anything that kind of could go into that if we do. But we wanted to absolutely share the demographics and definitely take questions, but look forward to kind of having routine updates as we go forward.
So the other part of the question that I asked is what kind of master plan are you doing? It's been since 2008, 2009, so we've updated our ordinances. Okay, almost everything's going in front of the ZBA, so the Rome is burning over there. So if we don't update our ordinances and our site plan regulations, our sign regulations, and everything else, they're going to continue to go to the ZBA, and we're going to have a mishmash of things all over town. So are you doing a 12 to 24 month master plan, which is what they generally take, or are you doing a master plan that is shorter in version, something more like a 3 to 5 month master plan?
We're doing a 3 to 5 shorter amendment to the 2012.
So I think your next update needs to be telling us what you're going to amend. Because if you don't get to the ordinances quickly, you may not have done an update to the master plan since 2013, but you're 16 years behind on ordinances for The planning board. The last time they got updated was when I was on the planning board.
I
Many
Sure, the town
moons
is
ago.
16 years behind,
So
yes.
what's going to happen is you overwhelm the ZBA, and then what they wind up doing is they wind up making the decisions that become a disproportion of maybe what the town is looking for. I'll give you the example of accessory dwellings. Those are now going in front of the ZBA. They don't belong in front of the ZBA. Where they belong is a proper ordinance from the planning board. So that really led to my questions, is that
And
now
and I
this-
believe we're gonna work through those. You know, for a timeline, we're being as aggressive as we can on this. I do not see this taking 12 to 16 months from the get-go. Mike and I have talked about that. You know, we were hoping for 9 months. I think that's a real, 6, and I think we're settling on 9.
So is it 3 to 5 months, 6 months, or 9 months? And I'm just repeating what you're saying. I'm not trying to give you a hard time.
I think it's fair to say 3 to 5 months is not long enough, but I am very confident that we're aiming for a 6 to 9 month turnaround.
So it's another year before there'll be ordinances brought forward and the site plan regulations and everything else be looked at.
Yep.
So we got another year of sitting on the sidelines, just letting things happen.
I don't think we're going to sit on the sidelines at all. I think our intention through this was as results come back and as we work as a board to work through a master plan, we would identify items and we would begin to change or amend them in unison with the master plan. So we are not waiting nine months, call it 9 months, to finish the master plan and then begin to try and make change. We are identifying things through our plan and we're acting on them. We've already started doing that.
May I suggest you go back and look at the ZBA, agendas and see what they're doing. Side ordinances, accessory dwelling units, lot line adjustments because site plan regulations aren't correct. Go see what they're doing and tackle those first. You don't need a master plan to do that.
We can, and as I said,
And I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just
yeah,
trying to
as I
expedite the
said,
process.
we are working together with staff. We're going through a master plan while trying to work our way through much needed updated ordinances that, to your point, haven't happened in 16 years. For the first time in 16 years, they're getting worked on, and they're being worked on very diligently by the planning board and town staff. It's not going to happen overnight. The planning board feels a very important role to that is a master plan, because helping to identify some of those necessary changes may come out through the master plan.
Well, as one town councilor, I'd like to see you come back with an update of what ordinances you're working on because we're the ones that have to approve them and know what's coming.
I'm sure we could work with town staff to put something together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable to partner with town staff and then come back with, here's an idea of what we'd like to work on, just so we can start doing our prep work as well.
And not to,
I believe we've got some of that
no,
tonight.
we've got a little bit of that coming in old business under my item later tonight.
All right, Mr. Town Manager. Is there anything else that you gentlemen would like to add?
Before I close up here, I'd like to know if any of our fellow board members have anything they'd like to add into this. Mr. Rugg.
I think the only thing that is missing is RSA 674:2, second paragraph, that the master plan is the basis for the legal adoption of ordinances, zoning changes, site plan regulations, subdivision regulations. So you really have to have the master plan first, because usually if you go into court because of zoning and someone has taken you to court, the first thing the judge is going to ask is this consistent with the master plan? So that's the overall question that gets asked. It gets into a legal situation, so you have to tread carefully.
That was an item that was brought up. I can't remember which meeting it was. Mike and I have talked about it a couple times, which is also a lot of the reason that has ignited this, was if your master plan doesn't reflect what ordinances you're trying to do, you're opening yourself to potential litigation. And there was a case where, a board said no to a development, and the reason that the judge ended up siding with the developer was because the master plan did not reflect the board's decision. So that's exactly why we're trying to update these together.
Okay. All right.
Just in closing, I do want to echo something that the town manager said, I believe it was the last meeting, with regards to the planning board and town staff. we are working together very well. I think he had kind of positioned it as we've never worked better together. I would have to agree with him. You know, this is everything that's going on is taking a lot of effort, and all the staff is embracing it and doing everything that they can to help the board out as well. And I think in the past, 5 or 6 months, we've made some good progress, and I do think that's going to continue as we're just starting to get our feet wet here.
I appreciate the efforts on the town and the boards on getting where they need to be, and I think that at the end of the day, you have to go uphill a little bit, and I think that has completed. We are concluded with that, and it's not easy. Just like this.
Well, he's Irish. I'm Italian, so we sort. Are you Irish?
No, not at all.
They call that a mixed marriage.
So
But
he can be for this conversation.
I do appreciate the work
Thank
that you all have put into this, and continue to encourage healthy conversation, reasonable conversation, and we look forward to future presentations from your committees, and also to your committee members that have patiently sat here for 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Not real patiently, but.
I would beg to differ. I appreciate just the commitment to the town and to the process, and support that you all put into this. I personally thank you for that.
Absolutely, I second that.
I don't know all the answers. I promise you, I don't know
None of
most.
us do.
However, I think together we can put our heads together and come up with a good product. So, gentlemen, thank you. Board members, thank you as well.
And I would like to say, just, having the pleasure of being on the planning board and on the master plan committee, I see all the heart that Jeff puts into this in gathering the feedback from the community. I see all the speed and urgency that Jake wants to put through and get some of these changes in here. And I know this has been, a long time before we refreshed both the regulations. John's right. The ZBA is filled with stuff that needs to be fixed.
Absolutely.
But you guys are jumping on it. I love seeing it. And I just, love seeing both of you work. So
we like you at the planning board, so it works out good.
Pleasure being here. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you. All right, Highway Safety Grant, Resolution 2024-25, acceptance of unanticipated revenue under RSA 31:95B, Section 3A. Mr. Town Manager.
Mr. Chair, extra patrols, some traffic enforcement work that this money will fund and facilitate.
All right. Council.
Make a motion to accept.
All right, so I have a motion to accept from Ron. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Sean. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. Resolution 2024-25 is resolved, adopted?
Is adopted.
Is adopted.
Yes.
Thank you. Withdrawal from the 2020, Order 2024-12, withdrawal from the Master Plan Capital Reserve Fund.
Mr. Chair, this is a request for a withdrawal of $6,235.90 from that capital reserve fund. It does have $69,000 and some change in it as of today. That may seem like a lot of money, but the 2013 plan cost $125,000. So I think we're off to a reasonable start.
Okay.
What will the money be used for, Mike?
It is for the assistance of the regional planner in liaising with staff, attending various community events, and what have you. So it covers really the first month and a half, 2 months of that work.
Perfect. Make a motion to adopt.
Order 202.
Yep.
Go ahead, say it.
Order 2024-12.
All right, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Sean. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is adopted. ordinance 2024-11, amendments to zoning ordinance, relative to section 2, adding the definition of a butter. This is the first reading, so I will accept a motion to waive the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Sean. Who seconded first?
I second. Good.
Ted, second from Ted.
We need buzzers.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading waived. All right, public hearings.
Motion to open public hearings.
I have a motion. Thank you, Ted. From Ted, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, gentlemen.
Ron can have it.
Sorry.
Second.
Sure, second.
All right, motion from Ted, second from Ron. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're in public hearing. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Kevin Smith, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the owner of the property being looked at being rezoned tonight, Pillsbury Realty Development, and also working in conjunction with the applicant, which is Trammell Crow. And with me tonight from Trammell Crow is Eli Long. Also their counsel, John Sokol, is in the audience, as well as Peter Hines. And perhaps before I jump into things here and why this request is being asked for, I would just allow Eli to say a few things about Trammell Crow and who they are and what they do.
Yeah, hi everybody. It's good to be with you. We are the nation's oldest real estate development company. Been around for about 75 years. My colleagues and I sit in Boston, and out of Boston we cover New England. We have another project over in Merrimack, so we've become big fans of the state of New Hampshire, and we went looking around for new opportunities, and we stumbled across this piece of property right off 93, and we think it has tremendous potential. And we try our best to, is the police fire chief still here? We got one Londonderry guy, and we try to fill out our team with as many local experts as we can find. So we've got civil, architect, council are all from New Hampshire. So we try to come in and be as good partners as we can with the communities that we look to seek do our projects in. So we're glad to be here.
So Pillsbury Realty has recently entered into an agreement with Trammell Crow to develop approximately 113 acres to the south of where the new Old Rum Trail exit 4A is going in. So the new exit bifurcates the land into roughly 113 acres to the south and 86 acres to the north. And the rezone we're looking for here this evening is on a portion that's approximately 28 acres. And really, this perhaps is something that should have been cleaned up at the time when the Woodmont Master Plan was being approved. It never was. But Mike, could you put up the existing underlying, not the underlying, that one there. No, you just had it. So this is the existing zoning that goes over the underlying zoning. This is the PUD zoning, which does not allow for mostly any industrial uses with the exception of research and development. However, the PUD does allow for the land to be developed using the underlying zoning. Mike, if you could go back to that last picture. And so you'll see that just about all of the land at Exit 4A is currently Zone Industrial 1. The one piece that isn't is that Pillsbury owns is that 28-acre piece there that's currently zoned residential. And Trammell Crow is contemplating utilizing the underlying zoning for their development for things like advanced manufacturing, logistics, life sciences, some of those industrial uses. And so we're looking to make this whole parcel congruent with the rest of it by zoning the underlying zoning of that parcel to Industrial 1. This was recommended by the planning board. A couple of the issues that came up were the residential parcels to the south there. Most of the homes are all along Ash Street. They're not further back in the property, so they're mostly wooded lots in the back, and there is still a setback requirement when that land, the current Pillsbury land, gets developed. Another issue that was asked about is, theoretically, any industrial use could be used here. So someone brought up the example, could you have a rock crushing operation? Technically, yes, that would be allowed in any of those zones up there. But the reality is I can tell you that Pillsbury Realty has to sign off, first off, on any development, and they're not going to sign off on that kind of use there. Nor, if you look at Trammell Crow's record, would you find that they do those kinds of developments. So I think that pretty much covers all of it, covers their request, and certainly happy to take any questions if the council has any.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience again, for being here. I understand it's an application, but it's still time, and that is very much appreciated. As you know, Mr. Smith might be familiar how government works.
All my meetings used to end at 8 o'clock, as far as I remember. So.
Well, that I'll accept the motion to adjourn. So moved. Any question?
Mr. Chair, just for the record on this, there was a butter notification that took place at this stage of the proceedings by certified mail, and the standard that the council is going to be using tonight is health, safety, general welfare, and consistency with the master plan.
Okay.
Mr. Sokol has addressed that in his letter that's included in the packet.
Okay. Before I go to the council, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address this? Sir. If you could, there's a microphone there. Do you mind moving the podium over a little bit so the microphone can reach and there isn't a trip? I got it, Kevin. That's all right. Thank you.
I don't live, John Wilson, London area, New Hampshire, Tranquil Drive. I don't live in that area at all. I don't have a dog in this fight, but I only have one question. I want to be assured that that property will not be used as an alternate route, i.e. a road coming out on Ash Street going into the greater industrial area.
I think the town has to.
Yeah, I would say that's part of the site plan process, so it's not even something that's been contemplated at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
And whether that was sold or not, putting a road there would have to go through the same plan. So there's no advantage or disadvantage in terms of somebody wanting to put a road there, whether it's industrial.
Correct, John.
That's right.
Okay. So I don't have to worry about that problem. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, sir.
So those residential homes that are on that offshoot of Ash Street there are owned by Pillsbury Realty, right?
A couple of them are.
Yeah. That's what I thought, okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the public?
Stephanie Minville, 15 Rain Tree Drive. I'm not in a butter, but I'm curious. I'd have to go back a ways to kind of remember the Woodmont master plan. Why was this particular 28 acres left off of the zoning of industrial at the time?
I don't know.
I can't speak to that only because I came in right when it was being approved. Art?
I certainly wasn't here.
I'm probably the only one.
Yeah,
I was the only one here.
I've got to believe there was a reason, but last year I
I
sat
don't
through
think
a
there was
meeting.
any. I don't think there was any reason. I mean, what the overall concept of the master plan is that we placed a district over existing zoning, not taking into account what each existing zone would be, so that the concept of it is that it made sure that everything was going to come back to the planning board and come back to the council, so that we got the proper kind of development. There's probably other zones within the Woodmont master plan that have the same issue, would be my guess. So once they had a project, they can bring this forward and say, this is what we want to do with it, and we can say yes or no. That would be, that's my best of my recollection. This piece of property was part of what they used to call Boston North, If you remember, they were gonna build a mall there back in like 1980 something.
Yeah.
That was all part of that.
Okay, great.
Does that help?
It does. And just one other question. That little piece that sort of drops down looks to me like a driveway heading out toward Ash Street, but I can't really see it. I know it's not a driveway, but it certainly makes its case for one.
I think that's probably frontage to give a
So
lot.
that's the frontage on
That-
Every
yeah.
lot has to have frontage.
Yeah.
We used to call those lollipop lots.
Right. So that is your road frontage, potentially. From a construction standpoint, if you've got, it doesn't sound like you're gonna have tankers coming in and out of there, but is that your best case for a driveway going forward? Or you don't know? the site plan
Yeah,
would-
not necessarily. Again, that all of this stuff has to be looked at as part of the site plan, and it will go through public hearings with the planning board, and yeah.
To give you an idea, it would cost them millions of dollars to rework that road in order to put larger vehicles on
Absolutely,
it. It would probably far behoove them to find a way to get back to 93 versus trying to come onto a local road. And it would literally cost them millions of dollars in off-site improvements.
And Ash Street, Pillsbury's really already
Right, and then you
becoming
got Londonderry
a mess.
Turnpike
It'd
all
be
there and everything
crazy to
else,
put it
so.
there, right? Okay, great.
I would hope they would spend their money differently.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
your
your
time.
comments. Anyone else? All right, so, any discussion from the council?
Looking forward to further development within Woodmont. Makes sense to make the change that clearly was a clerical error at one point.
So, accept the motion.
Accept the motion to approve the rezoning as presented.
Okay, so I'll accept the motion to approve the rezoning as amended.
So moved.
Motion from Ted, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Sean. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. Order is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you. All right, we're still in public comment. Ordinance 2024-10, an amendment to the Municipal Code Title II, Traffic Safety Code, Chapter 4, Speed Limits, Trucking Regulations. Mr. Town Manager.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. With the caveat that we discussed earlier, that we're gonna look at, we're gonna notice this up for additional changes that might be required in the future to these two chapters in the Traffic Safety Code. This simply effectuates the council's earlier decision to lower the speed limit on Gilcrest Road to 30 miles an hour. You will recall that I advised the board that there was a process that needed to take place, and that while we're at it, we ought to look at this and make sure that this list that hadn't been updated for like 15 years is accurate. Well, we've done that. We've worked with the police department. Cameron has done good work coordinating that process. So the only substantive change that you'll see in there is that update to Gilcrest Road that came at the behest of the planning board as the council amended it, if you will. And the other change is the posting of Griffin Road against through trucking. That I think was discussed at the same time. So really, this is just implementing and making legal decisions that the council has already taken.
Okay. Any public comment regarding this? Name and address, sir.
Tony DeFrancesco, 1 Cheshire. A couple things. One, I have another name that your public works director calls me. Calls me stop sign Tony. I will tell you that this is a great start. Having the speed limits reduced on many roads and having them actually cataloged again and updated and whatever. Seem to be doing a lot of updates from things that haven't happened in 20 years. But understand, this is just one small step. I came out of Concord, the football game at Concord, and I counted them because my name. I stopped at six stops that had stop signs that had no connecting roads going the other way.
So no cross streets?
No cross streets, thank you. It's getting late, So I'm just saying that we keep hearing about, stop signs don't control things, whatever. No matter where I travel in New England, all the cow paths, like we have in Londonderry, have lots of stop signs on them to control the speed of traffic. So this is a good sign. This is a good start, but we're going to come back and you're going to see this again. My second comment that I probably should have said in the beginning of the public comment was, I will tell you that ever since your town manager that works for you started wearing 7 hats, a lot's getting done. I'll let you take it from there.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I would beg to.
Was that a compliment?
Like it.
Was that Tony?
Stop sign Tony, yeah.
I would beg to
Right,
differ.
note that in the minutes, right?
Jeez, that doesn't happen down here too often.
I'd beg to differ more than 7 hats.
I'm just checking your fuel gauge, making sure it's
Yeah.
not burned you out yet.
Absolutely. So, discussion from the anyone else? My apologies. Anyone else from the public on this? All right, council.
Motion to approve ordinance 2024-10, an amendment to the municipal code Title 2 Traffic Safety Code, Chapter 9, Speed Limits and Trucking Regulations.
All right. So I have a motion from Ted.
Yeah, one second. Do we have to approve this tonight?
No, you could continue it to next time if you wanted to, and we wouldn't renotice it.
And if we continue it next time, can we just add West Road to it?
Yeah, I think that would be fair. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's just I'm loath to slip it in without talking about it, but I think that would be perfectly appropriate.
Okay. So Ted,
I'm willing to amend my motion to
Just withdraw.
withdraw and motion to table this to include West Road with the proper notification to abutters along West Road.
I'm just trying to save you a hat.
That makes good sense.
I don't think I've ever seen you wear a hat, but it's because they're all up in the air.
Oh, jeez.
Do we need a vote?
No, you just tabled.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So we'll
Yep.
table it.
Perfect.
All right.
Close the public hearing.
I have a motion to
So
close
moved.
public hearing from John.
Second, sorry.
from Ted. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. All right, old business. Possible legislative changes. Mr. Town Manager Ron Dunn. Gentlemen.
So I had just asked if Mr. Butler could stay because I wanted to get his opinion on some things. So I didn't know if he'd be willing to come up and address the council.
I don't know if I can
Some proposals that were made at the last meeting was Mike had made some current legislative uses that we could use. And then I made a proposal that we could involve Rockingham County towns and have a growth, traffic planning, and land use group of people that discuss that and try to have best practices from different towns. So any feedback from either our current regulations or feedback on a group of people getting together to discuss it?
I think it's a really good idea to, let's get some people together and have a discussion. I think a lot of this kind of ties into the master plan, specifically with growth and traffic. And I'd probably be a little bit more comfortable answering some of those questions once we get to a point where we have a better understanding of what the public wants to see with our master plan. But I think getting like-minded individuals in a room and talking is always a great idea.
Are there any current regulations that you see inhibiting Londonderry?
That I see inhibiting
Yeah, your
Londonderry?
opinion. This is your opinion.
Yeah,
This is not.
potentially. Again, I would kind of err on the same, my opinion may be very different than how the town feels. So I think, again, I would kind of err on that same response I just had, is I would be much more comfortable airing or discussing that once we have some survey results back from our master plan and trying to get a temperature for the residents of Londonderry, because what I feel may not be what the townsfolk feel.
Okay.
I think what he's driving towards is our current GMO is inefficient.
Mhm.
It doesn't serve any purpose.
Mhm.
In order to change the current GMO, there needs to be legislative changes.
Mhm.
You can't change it without having the legislature make the changes first.
Mhm.
So the trigger points have to change. So I think more of the discussion is what are those new trigger points?
Yeah.
And it's not, you're not gonna find it in a survey of the master plan after looking at the master plan. What we need to do as a community is we need to take the current ordinance and we need to pull it apart. As an example, we're never going to exceed the ability for the population of the schools anytime soon. We're just not going to, because there's data out there that has the schools at various different capacities. If we can't use that trigger point, we fail every time we go to the GMO, which means we can't control growth. So the starting point needs to be that current ordinance. And it's not your job as the planning board. It's really guidance to the legislative representatives of what needs to change. So, and I'm not expecting you to answer, I'm just telling you.
No, I get that. And just from where I'm coming from, I guess right now it's an assumption, in my eyes, it's an assumption that we need a GMO. Why I'm saying I'm hesitant to answer that right now is because, for all I know, the results of this come back and people say they want more housing and more housing and more housing.
The GMO doesn't work statewide.
So
you can't change it. The state dictates it.
Fair. That's fair. But that's why I'm reserved to giving an answer.
Yeah. Off the record, I'm gonna tell you a joke.
All right.
but I won't do it here.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I was just basically looking for your opinion, any feedback you have. If the master plan comes back and you want to give further input, I would appreciate your input
absolutely.
from the planning department.
Absolutely.
Because we're trying to look at different options here
Sure.
that will help Londonderry.
Absolutely, and I do think it's a great idea to look at any option you can, and it sounds like there's some work that needs to be, with his discussion, there's some work that needs to be done up north at the State House. So I think it's certainly worth a good conversation.
As an example, we have an inefficient transportation system available to an aging community to be able to, move within, to be able to sustain their value of life. Another one maybe is that, are our life services equipment up to the standard they need to be in order to continue to accept the growth of the community? Do we have the right ALS services and everything else? If we don't, we can't continue to grow until we fund those and that happens. Things along those lines, because as the demographic of the state changes, it's not as much about what it used to be and the way we used to grow, because now we're growing at a different pace with a different demographic. So your GMO has to change with the demographic. You're going to find some of that, but you're not going to find the pieces that are going to be what gives you the quality of life. That's what drives the GMO. So when you're thinking about it, those are the things to kind of put in the back of your head.
Sure.
It may be along the lines of that, you need to have better library services, because library services aren't only about books anymore. It's really about getting access to, artificial intelligence. I'm making these up as I'm going. But because artificial intelligence is what's going to drive the learning capacity going forward, of the entire community. But it has to change. It hasn't changed in 35 years, much like our other stuff.
Slowly finding out there's a lot of things that haven't changed.
It's the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
So I guess what I would ask is this is going to be a slow process, because December 6th is when the new legislator gets sworn in, and when bills happen is in January. So we got time. If you have any input in between then and now, please give it to me. I'm going to submit a bill that will allow us to have a committee to at least maybe get together the communities in Rockingham and get best practices.
Absolutely.
And any input you have, that would be appreciated.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I do appreciate your reservation and waiting for the feedback of the community, because that's what this is about, not our own personal opinions, but what the community wants.
Correct.
And so I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
I didn't know. Do you want to add anything else, Mike? Or,
No, I mean, I think that I thought I appreciated the conversations that we had.
Yeah.
I think that when we look at, and I'll talk about this a little bit in a minute, but when we look at the rapid growth that's occurring in southern New Hampshire, that is fairly unique in terms of the rest of the state. And I think that there are communities around us who, and I'll talk about that as well, that have made changes, and some of them work and some of them don't. But I think it would be important to have those conversations with communities that are experiencing a lot of the same rapid growth and the challenges that come with it. And so I think something targeted there would make a lot of sense and help us identify those state legislative changes that would give us more tools in the toolbox.
Absolutely.
Okay.
More stop signs.
Stop sign, Tony.
Slow them right down.
So thank you, Ms. Miller. I appreciate
Not
it.
a problem, Mr. Dunn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else from the
Good.
council?
All right, now.
Okay.
One quick
Yeah,
comment.
please.
Ron, on that committee with
Yep.
Rockingham County representatives, I would also encourage maybe Wyndham and Pelham, just because they are 93 corridor communities that are, a lot to do with
Absolutely.
what we have in this
Very
area.
similar situation. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a very
Yeah,
good
that's
point,
good.
John.
It's very good.
Very good point.
And I can think of a couple
And
people
Hudson, too. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but yeah.
that will help us with that. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you staying.
Not a
Thank you.
problem. Appreciate it. I'll just stay up here in case we got anything else. This next one looks like it has to do with growth and development. So
All right.
let's stay right here.
Other old business, Ms. Town Manager, managing and responding to growth and development.
All right, thank you for your attention at this late hour, Mr. Chair, members of the council. I'll try to work through this as quickly as I can, but still, not talk so fast that I can't be understood. I think that, this is something that's been on my mind a lot in the last 6 months to a year, particularly as I've gone out into the community and gotten a lot of feedback, direct feedback from residents. It's something that I know you all hear about on a pretty much daily basis, is traffic and development and how fast Londonderry is growing. And my purpose in putting together this presentation is just to identify options that I think could work to alleviate to respond to some of these concerns as quickly as possible. I'm not looking for options that will take years of research and study, but really things that will be practical, can have an immediate effect. And often, to Councillor Farrell's point, that's going to mean regulatory changes or changes to our ordinances, as opposed to long-range, higher-level study documents. That being said, I think that the options that I'm going to present to you tonight, I don't think are going to conflict with the 2025 master plan. I am going to make an educated guess that the feedback that we're going to get isn't going to be, I want more cars on our roads, going faster, and more congestion. I suspect we're not going to hear that. I suspect we're not going to hear, that we want more strain on our municipal resources. And so these options, I think, are able to live and grow with whatever the feedback is, whatever the master plan looks like. And I say that because things haven't really changed over the last 10 to 15 years in a certain way. So when asked, what do people like least about living in Londonderry, the response was as follows. In sharp contrast to what people like about Londonderry, themes including high taxes, overdevelopment, traffic, and loss of open spaces were identified as the things people like least about living in Londonderry. Roughly 25% of the respondents cited concerns that are associated with the development, such as growth in general, its pace, and associated traffic congestion. What are people's biggest hopes for the future of Londonderry? Over 2/3 of respondents, of 68%, mentioned retaining rural character and or controlling growth and development as their biggest hope for Londonderry's future. Respondents appeared hopeful that much of the town's current charm could be preserved and that the town would continue to have a good mix of open spaces and sound development. Retaining the rural and small town features was mentioned repeatedly, and respondents seem hopeful that the identity of Londonderry will remain unique and decidedly rural. What does this sound like? This sounds like the feedback that I think we all hear out in the community. It might it sort of sounds like I broke into the portal that they're conducting the master plan survey with and got an early look at the results. But no, this is from the 2013 master plan. So that's a long way of saying that things have changed a lot since 2013, but in some ways they haven't changed much. And I bring that up because, not to say that we've ignored the master plan. I don't think that's correct at all. And I'll talk about that in just a second. I bring that up to say that some of these problems are really intractable, and some of them, I suspect that if we looked at the 2004 master plan, people would be saying exactly the same thing.
And 2008.
Exactly right. So these things, you're never going to be able to stop growth and development, and I don't think that's what anybody's talking about here. We're not talking about closing down the town. We want to keep what's good about the town.
I disagree with you. We did stop growth and development.
Well,
we had a build
correct.
out of 42 to 43,000.
Correct.
We were at 24,000 in 2013, and we're at 27,000 now. We secured the rights to all of the orchards except for Elwood and Woodmont. We have thousands of acres of open space. We've spent $16 million buying open space, and we've got well over 1,000 acres in the musquash preserved in the western end of town. If we didn't do that, we'd be at 35, 38,000 people.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And
I said the argument is the people
We did.
the
Correct.
people who were involved in all these different boards and everything, they did do it.
correct. And I have a slide on that too.
Oh, good.
So thank you, Councilor Farrell. I think that's exactly right, and anticipates what I'm going to talk about in a second. And again, to the point, people will say, well, the town isn't interested in, has ignored the master plan, put it on a shelf, and disregarded it. Not the case. I mean, there's 82 total recommendations that came out of the 2013 master plan. 24 of them are complete, 7 are in process, and 16 are not feasible or no longer possible based on how the town is developed, or never were possible for that matter. So that is keeping what's good, improving what's bad, and responding to the effects of growth and development is really what it's all about. This is just a look at what that growth and development has looked like, and there are some surprises here. I don't think anybody would be surprised to see the multifamily numbers for 2024, which is just a partial year, are significantly higher, more than double any other prior year. And that is because we've got a lot in the pipeline that is started to come through. It's also because, keep in mind when you're looking at these numbers, this is based on building permits issued, and we issue a building permit for each building. And so when you have something like Wood Partners coming online with multiple different buildings, that's going to inflate those numbers. But that's how we track that. Some other interesting things is single family building seems to have really is bottoming out now. I find that interesting, and I suspect that's because the developable land that could be subdivided into large subdivisions is largely gone.
I think it's also interest rates.
That's a good point as well.
There's not much more land to build on.
And it's-
Like cost of building material.
They would find a way to build on it if they could do it, with.
They were
interest
feasibly
rates.
manageable, yeah.
I mean, I just noticed another development going up, off of Hardy Road. There's a big sign there that says Morrison Estates or something like that.
I saw that.
And but some of the builders that I've talked to and everything, like one of them I know is building an apartment complex right now because he's waiting for the interest rates to come down, because the cost of the infrastructure to be able to build a development has tripled.
Yeah, certainly.
So so there's no profit. And if people aren't, if people can't get a loan to pay the $800,000 he wants to pay for the house, he can't pay for or she can't pay for the infrastructure. So that's also, I think, part of what's driving that number.
Infrastructure, I think, is probably the biggest factor driving that number.
I think if Mr. Slater's back there, he would agree with me.
Okay, this is the information that Councilor Farrell anticipated I would be talking about. We did not coordinate beforehand. What are we already doing? This slide is entitled Using the Tools That We Have, because I think that there's a lot of tools that we have used and are using. There's some tools that we have but we're not using, and then there's some tools that we need. What are we already doing? Right up there at the top is funding the Conservation Land Acquisition Fund. This is something that I think it came out of the Open Space Task Force, probably was being done before that even. We are currently sending the first $100,000 and then 40% of the balance of all land use change tax receipts to the Conservation Land Acquisition Fund. This is something that my administration has gotten more aggressive about, is chasing those land use change tax receipts. And it's been successful. It's allowed us to conserve the land right over there next to Town Hall. What was formerly part of Max is now Sunnycrest. Lithia Springs, Merrill Hill, Griffin Road. That's 175 acres of land that has not only been removed from development potential, but also conserved, and all of the benefits that go with that. $3.7 million spent since 2018, and we've got another $750,000 coming into the Conservation Fund soon from the Gilchrist Road transaction. When I look at those numbers and I look at the properties that we've conserved just in the last 5 to 7 years, that is just incredible work under the leadership of the town council, and it is doing exactly what folks want. It is removing property from development. It is retaining the rural character, open space, charm, feel that makes Londonderry what it is, and it's coming with environmental benefits all the way.
Mike, do you have what percentage we are at conservation compared
Yes,
to the land?
On a future slide, but it's yes.
I feel like it's related to what you're talking about right now. So.
Correct. That number is 15% of the town is conserved, with another 15% which is undevelopable based on wetlands or other open space restrictions that are not conservation related.
So basically just about 30%.
Correct. Yep. So we're also not ignoring traffic. And we've talked about traffic tonight. We are the Stonehenge traffic circle project is we're right about there. We were here last meeting talking about that. The intersection of 128 and 28 at the Triangle Mobile, that's on the 10-year plan. That's coming. That's probably one of the worst intersections in town in terms of safety. We're going to solve that problem. We are seeking to add Route 102 west of Crossroads to the 10-year plan. We have submitted a roadway safety audit for that dangerous stretch of road. We are going to be coming to you soon with a proposal to address the Pettingill Road traffic congestion. That's something that's well underway. Exit 4A. Let's not forget that Exit 4A is one of the purposes is a traffic congestion mitigation measure. It's to draw the traffic north that is getting off at Exit 4 and going into Derry, and to take it off our roads. And then I think the most recent, most successful example of the town council really wrestling and engaging and successfully with traffic, Stop Sign Tony, Old Mammoth Road. I haven't heard a single complaint about Old Mammoth Road since the council took the decisive action that you took. So that's great. House Bill 2024, that was something that Senator Carson helped us with. That's going to allow the Commissioner of Transportation to reduce the speed limit west of west of Crossroads all the way to the Hudson line. We're implementing the 2013 master plan recommendations. I talked about that a minute ago. We got a congestion mitigation air quality grant for the rail trail. I was here last time to talk about that. That's not only a recreational benefit, but it is the purpose of that grant is to reduce traffic congestion, put commuters onto the rail trail, put people onto the rail trail who are not otherwise on our roads. So that's important. We've got good fundamentals. By that I mean, we've got our 2013 master plan. I wouldn't say it's broken. It needs some updating, but it's fairly progressive in terms of its approach. To Councillor Farrell's point, what didn't occur, we didn't take the next step and by and large implement, passed the regulatory changes that would have implemented more of those recommendations. And that's something that we need to make sure is part and parcel of this master plan, and I think we're agreed on that. We've got fairly progressive zoning, I think, in terms of how the state looks at these things that need to be updated, but we're in reasonably good shape. Our zoning makes a lot of sense. We've got the residential areas are largely straddling High Range Road and Mammoth Road, and then you've got the growth areas and the commercial and industrial areas that are geographically separate. We have a modern, efficient town charter, and what does that charter allow us to do? It allows you 5 to make important zoning changes and be more responsive. You don't have one chance a year to do it. You can do it when a problem arises. And that's an important power and benefit to the people of Londonderry that town charter communities have that most of the state do not. And so that's what we're doing well already. What tools do we have, but maybe we're not using or we could use more? We could modify the current funding arrangement for land use change tax receipts. We could decide to send 100% of those receipts to the land acquisition fund.
That's what we used to do. But it was changed because the open space concept was to use land that was going to be developed for housing, and the money was being used for land that was never going to be developed. So the change was made so that we could make sure the money was being spent appropriately. And that was approved by the voters, by the way. So I think that would have to be reversed by the voters.
I agree. I looked at that. It looks like it was on last in 2016 or.
It sounds about right.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. But it is when you approve something like that at town meeting, you typically do have to go back, and I agree with that. But that's an option. Something that if the council and the community feel could be beneficial, you could look at.
And based on your numbers, as a town of 42 square miles, 12 square miles is either in conservation or can't be developed. It's pretty good.
That's pretty good. And I would put us up against any other community really in the area in terms of that conservation and open space program that has been in effect for at least 20 years, 25 years. What else could we take advantage of? Well, there are these things called innovative land use controls, and we have some. A PUD is an innovative land use control, but so are impact fees. So are village development. So there's a whole host of things, and I'll talk about more in a minute, that we could take advantage of and just build some more flexibility into our regulations and requirements. We could, historically, we've used density bonuses to incentivize certain kinds of development. We did that most recently with age-restricted housing. We removed that in 2018, I believe. But you could use a density bonus to incentivize a village or cottage-style development. That's something that Jake and I have talked about as being really in keeping with the character and feel of town. So there are different things, and I'll talk more about that in a second. And then I think that there are certainly investments in traffic infrastructure and enforcement that we could talk about. And that doesn't necessarily mean tax dollars. I think that there are different potential sources for investments in traffic infrastructure and enforcement, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then what tools do we need, but maybe we don't have right now? One of them is, I think, a study commission to address the rapid growth that's occurring in southern New Hampshire, and the effect on communities is important. I think that something that you and I talked about also, Councillor Dunn, was technical assistance. Mm-hmm. There is a ton of money out there at the state level, but it's difficult. We're a lean, mean machine in terms of our government. That's a great thing, I think, but we don't have a lot of time to poke around on websites and look for grants. Mm-hmm. And so if the state could do something, or maybe it exists to help, sort of train where you look for these kinds of grants, how do you go about it, that would be beneficial, I think, as well. As we've discussed repeatedly, we need to continue advocacy for local control in our land use laws. every single legislative cycle, there are bills that would seemingly solve New Hampshire's problems by mandating certain things in our local zoning. And that's not the solution. A lot of the housing legislation that was proposed this past cycle, as we've discussed, it wasn't creating options for municipalities, it was creating mandates for municipalities. And we need to continue to resist that, because what Londonderry chooses is not what, is appropriate in Concord, or vice versa. And then we need to continue to pursue state and federal grants. Those are those congressional grants that have been so beneficial. The HOP grant, which is in process, that's going to be a regulatory audit, $50,000. Look at our zoning ordinance, see what could be tweaked, and give a report to the town. The 10-year plan, we need to continue to engage with that process and make sure that our worst roads, our worst intersections are part of that 10-year plan. Going back to the couple of questions that you raised, Mr. Vice Chair and Councilor Farrell, this is what the conserved part of Londonderry looks like. You see the Musquash, that is prime land would have been prime land for development. I don't know how many thousands of houses would have been over there.
If you go through there, you'll find out that's where a lot of people lived when they came to Londonderry.
Cellar holes out there. I mean, the soil's probably good. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of nice streams and trees. But we don't have to worry about that getting bulldozed because prior town councils and the voters have conserved that for future.
That was the brilliance of the people here in the 70s and 80s. They were the forefathers who saw that.
It's a great benefit, and I think there are some people in Londonderry who, particularly maybe in East Londonderry, who don't go over there and who don't know it. But it's benefiting everybody in Londonderry just by being there and not by being developed. Again, as I talked about, let's just talk about what the purposes of conservation are. It's to reduce the full build out, it's to maintain the character that we all love, and it's to preserve the environmental and habitat features of that property. Here's something that we've talked about a lot, you and me, Jake, is cottage or village style development. Again, I talked about utilizing the tools that we have and incentivizing the kinds of development that we want. Cottage or village style development concentrates density in a smaller area of the parcel. It's similar to a cluster subdivision or a conservation subdivision, but it's going to have a lighter touch on the surrounding area. It's going to feel less dense, even if it might be just as dense. And again, this is preserving, contributing to, enhancing the rural charm and character that we all love. The other thing that this kind of sort of denser housing does is, to Councilor Farrell's points earlier this evening, we hit the high water mark of school population, school enrollment in 2002, and it's been downhill ever since. So a new multifamily unit will put 0.17 school-age children in Londonderry schools. A new single-family unit will put 0.64 public student schools, age students in our schools. That was amplified this weekend by an article in the Union Leader that said higher density housing, whether in the form of condos or multifamily rentals, generated far greater net benefits on a per acre basis than single-family housing. That was a 170-page study from New Hampshire Housing. So there's a lot to think about here, but I think that when we talk about small changes that could really change people's feeling and perception towards some of these issues, something like incentivizing cottage or village style development, I think, could go a long way.
Does our current, going back a slide, does our current zoning permit this style?
Probably the closest thing we have is Lorton Commons.
Yeah, I mean,
as an idea.
A proposal actually just came before the planning board that had something like this on the north part of the Woodmont area. So,
yeah, so there's a lot of flexibility built into the PUD for this kind of a thing, and I think that's one of the benefits of the PUD is it's flexible enough to allow something like this. I think that you do see things that approach this, but they tend to be kind of cookie cutter, all in a row,
similar,
and I think that one of the things that we don't have is really design or aesthetic standards that we could have for something like this, to encourage not every house looking the same, to encourage that middle space where people can recreate. And so I think really the sky's the limit. This is not something that the law would prohibit us doing, regulating any of that. I think that this is being used all over the country now.
So there's nothing legislative that would prevent, at the municipal, state, or federal level, that would prevent something similar to this?
Correct.
Yeah, I think all you need to do is take your 55 and older template and just tweak it.
Exactly. And my guess is we're not going to see a lot of the cookie cutter stuff anymore. If people want density in terms of developers want density for a lot of the reasons that we've discussed. The single family, with the interest rates and the construction costs where they are, single family building is just not feasible. But if we can do density in a responsible way that doesn't sort of blight the character of town, I think that's one option. And there's any other kinds of. I mean, my point is that we should identify types of projects and development and feel that we like, and we should incentivize those.
Yeah, the only issue with this is going to be is that you're going to want to draw up a template for the homeowners association versus letting the developer draw it up. So you tweak your 55 and older, and you have to use and really come up with more of a template that they have to stay within. Otherwise, what you're going to wind up with is something something future people can't manage if you don't do that.
I think that's a good point, because those kinds of organizations do have a habit of going extinct or getting badly bungled when the boards turn over and what have you. So I think that's exactly right.
And I think if we tweak that ordinance and everything, the current 55 and older, as people age out and the demographics of the country change, you're also going to see an opportunity there to be able to have housing that may be available because people have timed out and the demographic has changed and the housing needs to be filled. So I think you need to take all of that into consideration at the same time.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
And you could shape those communities like this if need be.
And the other benefit of a community like this is they tend to be the residences tend to be smaller, maybe one level. And I think that for it's not necessarily just going to be young families. It would be people downsizing,
mixing,
and mixing. And I think that it's one option to check a lot of those different boxes.
Well, you could very easily see if someone downsizing and them having their children living near them in a community like this. But I think we have the framework already. I think it's just a matter of massaging the framework.
I agree. Thank you for those comments.
Great points.
Some other ideas. So one or two of these may be more controversial or what have you. But I think that let's at least get them on the table and talk about them. I talked about innovative land use controls and impact fees being one of those. We had a fairly expansive impact fee ordinance historically, and we had a school impact fee, we had a police impact fee, a fire impact fee, and I think that one way to have it to have something that's more manageable is to target one thing, and maybe it's traffic, or maybe it's improving the walkability of town. Really, the thing with an impact fee is you have to do a projection about what you're looking for, what it's going to cost, and then you have to do the math backwards and figure out what a fair impact fee is. But I think that that is one option that we could talk about. The other option for and this is kind of the choice that I alluded to earlier was, look, we can ask the voters for money to fund traffic improvements each cycle. That was the initial version of this in my mind was some kind of a capital reserve account where we would fund that each cycle. But I think that there's other sources of revenue, and one of them might be developers via a very carefully crafted and administered impact fee ordinance. The other thing I would say about that is, we have a finance department now that is fully built out. One of the issues with the impact fee program that we had in the past was that no single department or person was in charge of it. I think we've learned a lot of lessons, and that that's something that we could talk about if the council wanted to.
So you're saying we'd have the staff to properly manage it?
Yes, I mean, again, I would advise against a huge, expansive.
The legislation needs to change, and the Department of Revenue needs to change their rules. That's what we learned through the forensic audit we had in like 2012, is that needs to change because the criteria from the state is too loose. So it needs to be much more stringent because we wound up with millions of dollars that we had to return because there were no guidelines to follow from DRA and from the state, from a legislative level. So even if we did a good job, we could still do it wrong.
Yeah, it's definitely an area that you don't want to
Very
just
complex.
you don't want to dabble in. There's no question about that.
Right, and that's
So
what
clearly,
I've
there's an
heard.
area for Ron and his fellow representatives to hopefully try and clear up.
That's if he gets reelected, you know.
Well, we'll see.
Gotta get out there campaigning, Ron. You got a lot of work to do.
Thanks, John.
All right, Mr. Town
It's getting
Manager.
late, Ron. I'm getting giddy.
You know, you could do, I think slightly, this is something that we've done before, is
Gentlemen.
we know how to do a TIF district.
Gotta do some side waving there, Ron.
We know how to do a TIF district. I think that one, great use of a TIF district is if you have an area of town that is suffering from traffic congestion or failures, that you can capture the increment and put it back into that neighborhood by way of traffic infrastructure improvements. So let's continue to talk about TIF districts as a way to do that. Maybe we want to talk about a traffic enforcement unit. I've heard the chief say, I don't have, somebody to just devote to traffic enforcement all the time. And that's true, with the way that their minimum staffing works right now. Maybe we need to talk about a traffic enforcement unit. Maybe we need to talk about, I think that our police department is very good about educating and then writing tickets. But I also know that people are complaining every day about traffic safety, traffic speed, and what have you. So maybe there's a conversation that can occur there. I don't have authority to tell the police department what to do, nor would I want to. But I think that that's something that I would be interested in hearing their take on. And then, the growth management ordinance that is on the books in terms of legislatively. Derry has a very, very complex growth management ordinance that's tied to, traffic congestion. It's tied to other factors. I think that there may be some options there, but again, our hands are tied a little bit. But I think that with a lot of these things, if we started very small, very targeted, I think that could be a start. Where else should we focus our efforts? And again, John and I did not talk about this first one, but he's certainly been talking about this for a while. What do we hear, at budget season from, our elderly residents? I can't afford to stay in my home, and I mean, we don't refer to them colloquially as ADUs. We refer to them as in-law apartments. So let's not overlook this as a tool to keep Londonderry's oldest and longest standing residents here. Wisest. And we have an ADU ordinance that's already fairly progressive. I view this as a way to accommodate new residential units, but with a lighter touch.
Potentially it's not being as marketed or advertised as something that people could do.
I think that's right. I think that people maybe aren't aware always that that's an option. But this is something that, for young and old. I mean, it could be all different kinds. I mean, you've got people where the parents are moving to the in-law apartment and the kids are moving into the house. So that's good.
Have you guys seen what's going on over the Hudson line where they're actually building units like that?
No, where?
If you go behind Ben Dyson's ice cream back there and everything else, there's $1 million homes over there that have the parents and the family, and it's a whole development. You know where they're like where the boats are. Mm-hmm. It's behind there. Like so you have the apartments, and then right next to it's this development. I think they're running like somewhere between 1.1 and 1.3 million dollars, but and they're nice.
What did you say it was in here?
You know the ice cream parlor where the all right, so
The old BAE site.
Rocco's Pizza
Yeah, Rocco's Pizza right over here.
up behind there. Yeah, I mean they're really nice looking.
Yeah, and they're not being built because there's no demand for them. I mean, this is the way of the future, I think.
Yeah.
For sure. So, what are other things, Councillor Farrell mentioned some issues with our ADU ordinance. I think that there are some issues. I think that there's also some opportunity to, build that ordinance out in a way that will further the charm, the character, factors that we've been talking about. Maybe we need some design or aesthetic standards for ADUs. Right now, we have a requirement that they be consistent with the primary dwelling. Maybe we want to, have a lookbook for ADUs, encourage like a carriage house style for detached ADUs. I mean, the sky's the limit. I think that we could allow additional flexibility, and that's one of the issues right now is that we have a one-size-fits-all ADU ordinance, and so any little change is requiring a trip to the ZBA. I think that we could easily regulate that more efficiently by conditional use permit at the planning board level. So that if you have an ADU that doesn't quite fit in the box, you go to the planning board, not the ZBA, where these issues can be most efficiently addressed. I think that green infrastructure is an area where there's a lot of potential here. Green infrastructure is just a way to manage stormwater with a lighter, more environmentally sensitive touch. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean huge detention basins, piping water and then collecting water and piping it away. Maybe it means, absorbent rain gardens. Maybe it means, we're going to treat the water a little bit, let it infiltrate, and move away. Maybe it means we should require less impervious material in new developments, have an incentive or a requirement where water is going to move back into the ground as opposed to being piped off and taken away. UNH has a stormwater center. They are sort of at the forefront on this. But my point is that I think stormwater management has evolved a lot in the last 20 years since our regulations were last updated. Let's make sure that we're handling it appropriately, safely, but also that we're not over-engineering huge detention structures that are ugly and not very environmentally friendly. Mature tree, and again, that is something that comes out of the 2013 master plan. Mature tree preservation standards, that's also a requirement in the 2013 master, or a recommendation. That's easy. That's low-hanging fruit. For some reason, it just never got implemented into the regulations. You can incentivize developers to preserve mature areas of trees. And I think that a little goes a long way in terms of, I think typically the site work, to just come in and cut down all the trees and clear it. And gosh, if we could retain a little bit of the character, that would really make a big difference. Complete streets. Complete streets may sound familiar because it's also a recommendation from the 2013 master plan. It's an approach to planning, designing, and building streets that enable safe access for all users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and transit riders of all ages and abilities. And it's not just a safety thing. It is a kind of a holistic approach to make sure that streets are nicely designed, that they're aesthetically pleasing, that they're safe, that they can accommodate pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle traffic. And again, it's a recommendation from the 2013 master plan. We never implemented it from a regulatory standpoint, but I think it's fairly low-hanging fruit. It would make a huge difference to some of these streets that are going in and that have gone in. And I think it would really change the look and feel. Planting strips, having street trees, all of these things can make a big difference. And then let's talk about sidewalks. We haven't historically invested in sidewalks. But they have dual functions. They don't only get people around, but they also narrow the roads. They slow people down a little bit. They make the town more walkable. These are, again, to the discussion that we've had all night, I think that they're discrete changes. They're not boiling the ocean. There are communities all over the country and in New Hampshire that are doing a lot of these things. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. What part of this effort is, I agree with Councilor Farrell 100%. I'm not really looking to sit around and wait to see what happens with the master plan before we start implementing some of these things. I think that for kind of wholesale changes, reinventing the wheel, changing the whole way that we do business, I think that that's not what I'm talking about here. Those recommendations would need to come out of the master plan, but we're starting to chip away at it. I mean, we have gotten passed or pending regulations to address stormwater, to bring us into compliance with MS4 requirements. We've really streamlined and improved the process for development. That also is a recommendation from the 2013 master plan. Things are going as smooth as ever with applications before the planning board. Last meeting, after another 10, 15 years, approved an updated sewer facilities plan. That's going to inform a lot of the master plan committee's work and a lot of what we're talking about here. Again, the master plan is in process. I've brought to you a proposed change to the definition of a butter. We talked about tonight and continue to the next meeting, important changes to the traffic safety code. We have a pending look at a short-term rental ordinance option. And then, as I mentioned, we've got the HOP grant that is an audit of our zoning ordinance that is pending as well. I think that, I'm proud that we've been able to do this during a time of open positions and everybody doing more with less. More work to do, but I think that the point of this is to show that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Thank you. It's taken me until now to talk about the State of the Town address from last February, but let me just do it in a very discreet way by quoting myself. I said, we have all the tools that we need to confront these challenges, but we can only do so together. I was talking about the challenges being the challenges that accompany growth and development, strain on our infrastructure, traffic that seems to increase with time every year. My point in saying this is, I think that we have a stable of tools to respond to these challenges. I've tried to highlight, options that I think are doable, practical, realistic, and based on where we are as a community. I think that no option by itself will solve the problem. There's no silver bullets here, but by taking a multifaceted approach, I think we can respond to a lot of the concerns that we hear every day. We can only do so together. I think that this is an area where anytime you're talking about what people's vision is for the future, you're going to have disagreement, and there needs to be ample room for disagreement. But I think that we need to, do our part, each of us, to keep the temperature down during some of these difficult discussions. We need to credit each other's good faith, and that will allow us to make really strong, lasting, positive changes for the community. Yes. So I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback. I know that there's a lot here, and you probably want some time to digest. But I'm looking forward to those conversations, and I thank you for your attention at this late hour.
Do we have a copy of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get that for you.
Okay. Thank you for putting that together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it's very helpful.
All right. That will conclude our old business. Any comments before we transition to approval of minutes?
And I guess I have one question for Mike and potentially for John, who has more experience on this item, is we have a good deal of money going into the conservation fund, and what happens when we come to a determination that really there's not much more land to really buy to put into conservation, and Now we're stuck with keep on putting more and more money into that conservation fund without really being able to really use it.
Yeah.
And when that money could be used for either infrastructure or other town projects that might be more suitable for the town as a whole, when it's been determined that, you know, how much more land can we really develop or, purchase, that's not really reasonable to purchase.
That's a really good point.
We're at 30% right now.
That's what I was trying to get at earlier.
That is an excellent point, because my understanding of that statute is, I mean, the voter, it needs to be approved at town meeting, but the voters can put that money to any permissible purpose. I think that probably you want to have a conversation with the Conservation Commission to identify what their priorities are for, remaining major tracks, but I think they're getting fewer and farther between, to your point.
I don't think you ever want to deplete the fund.
Yeah.
And here's the reason why. The original open space concept was to buy land use rights, development rights. Let's say someone in the future turns around and says, you know what, I want to take it to the ballot to sell one of the pieces of land that has development rights on it. As the town, we could oppose that and use that money and purchase the land outright, so that it wouldn't get developed. So you want to have a fund to be able to go to that and put it into conservation. That would be one option. And there's probably at least 6 or 7 parcels I can think of off the top of my head that we just own the rights to. We didn't buy them outright. And that's one of the reasons we stopped buying rights and started buying them outright.
Yeah.
But there is exposure there.
Okay.
Now, that may never happen.
Right,
But-
I guess
but-
I'm just
but it's
seeing all the
possible.
potential development from Woodmont and more potentially on Pengold Road to be drastically adding to that fund that we might not be able to use.
I don't think I don't think that's ever going to happen. I mean, there's other negotiations we've had over the years, and some of them didn't come to fruition, but the money was available, and when you have cash available, let's say someone comes in and they want, hypothetically, let's just say something like this happened. Somebody wanted to build 200 apartments, and we were able to go to them and offer them $2 million and put that land into conservation. That deal didn't actually happen, but when you have $2 million available and you can do that, there's a lot to be said for that.
This is
And
true.
it's a very good tool to have in your toolbox. Someday you may run out of it, but I don't think we're going to run out of it anytime soon. And that's just my observation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think it's the large parcels are few and far between. But I do think that one of the other things about conservation that I've heard them say is connectivity makes a big difference. So if there is a parcel or a little vacant parcel or a parcel that comes up, having the ability to connect conservation areas, is important as well.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks for your time.
Look forward to, as you mentioned, just digesting that and processing and re-engaging in conversation following time. Approval minutes. Do I have a motion to approve minutes from September 16, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Ted, second from Ron. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Abstained.
I wasn't here.
Please let the record reflect. Chair votes in the affirmative to approve. Liaison reports. Any reports from council?
Within the past week.
Nothing the past week.
Yeah.
I don't have fully prepared notes, just other than on the school board. The board voted unanimously to move forward with the option to move kindergarten to the elementary schools, creating a K-5 district by adding some portable classrooms, which take care of the space needs for the programs and open space at Moose Hill, and open space at Moose Hill to house the district office. So early estimate, very rough, is 8.7 million, which takes care of 3 areas. This will give the district 5 to 10 years to monitor the enrollment as well. So That's all I have. Any other liaison reports? Town managers report.
Just really quick this evening, Mr. Chair, I have a call into the CART contact in Manchester. I have someone who has expressed interest, who I think would be very good to fill a vacancy on the CART board. But I just want to talk through the logistics with that group to make sure I know how many vacancies there are and what the process is. But I'm expecting to bring that back to you with a recommendation.
Awesome.
The mosquito map hasn't been updated since the last meeting, so Londonderry remains in a low risk for human acquisition of those Triple E and West Nile
I believe you had stated at previous meetings that you have a reoccurring reminder to
yes.
monitor that and
That's
check
right.
it.
Every
Okay.
Friday.
Thank you.
We are no longer in abnormally dry conditions after the rain event that we just had, so we don't need to worry about the drought report probably for the rest of the season. And then I wanted to update you on one of the goals that you had set for me, which is to look at the elderly exemption that we offer for people in the 80-year-old plus range. I've done most of that work with the assessing department, and I'll be coming to you soon with a recommendation about how to expand that benefit for our elderly residents.
Okay.
If I could just follow up, Mike, you did a great job Monday at the meeting.
Oh, thank
It was
you.
Very, very good meeting. It was very productive.
Thank you.
And it was very civil.
Yes, thank
so,
you. It's
So
Monday
one of
was-
the highlight that we had given Mike was to meet with the state
Yep.
reps, and he did a fabulous job.
It was a very, it was a great collaboration. I really enjoy those meetings, and it's nice that everybody can kind of meet in an informal setting and talk about the issues that are facing the town. So thank you. Thank you for attending, Councilor.
Great work. All right. Folks, next meeting is October 7th here at the Moose Hill Council Chambers, 7 p.m., followed by October 21st. Same time, same place. With that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Ted, second from Ron. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.